All right. I believe we are live.
Oh,
Hello, everybody. Got a
hi.
fun crew here in the chat.
Color's out for the game.
Oh, boy. Oh,
Did anyone
boy.
see it? Is it like upper body can mean head or it can be mean like upper body? Would
Oh,
you consider the head as the upper body?
the most
Or
upper part of the body.
well, is the head part of the body? I guess so.
I mean, I don't know. I think my
The
whole
human
body is everything.
body. The
Yeah.
human body
Contains a head.
it has a head.
Yeah. I guess if you're
Yeah.
asking me if like your soul is part of your body or whatever, that's a whole
Whoa.
other thing. Or like your brain.
Your knowledge. Is your knowledge part of your body?
I mean, I guess your brain is part of your body, but it doesn't feel as it like we feel like we're separate from our brain. It's like I'm Elon and like I have different parts, including my brain, but it's like actually your brain is you. It's kind of weird when you really like start thinking about it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was being a lot more basic about it. I was just thinking like in Punch Out, like
Uh huh.
boxing games, like there were
Oh, you
body
punched
blows
body
and
part.
head blows.
Yeah.
So, so
And
is
then
the
you were
head
the
really part of
nerd
the
being like,
body?
you were like, wouldn't anywhere be a body blow?
No, that was I want you to know I'm just thinking about this in retrospect. I didn't play Punch Out for hours angrily. Just be like,
Remember,
why are they calling it a body blow?
I had a friend, Jason, at school,
What's
who
the
told me
last
once.
what's the last
I was
initial?
about to
Do I
say
know
it.
him?
I don't think
D?
so. Jason S. I don't think
Oh,
you knew him. But like he told me that you know how like when you're fighting that guy, what was it, King Hippo? It was like all the people like when you knock them down, they like get up, But like he like you just have to knock him down once, and he never gets up ever. And I remember he told me that like King Hippo got up once when he fought him, and I like believed him, and I was just like, how? He's like, yeah, I don't know, but he got up. And we are just being so like, oh, what happened? Oh, I thought Brian's like sort of look of annoyance was like like annoyed at how I fell for this story, but I guess it's because his sound went off. Between you and me, everybody, I think what happened is Brian's cable came out of his microphone, and I like suggested that he buys a new cable because he's been telling me it's like a loose cable. And I even sent him a link on Amazon. It's like $6 for two of these. I have a backup, but we don't live in the same. I guess I should just mail this to him because this cable now is a lot. I don't know if you recall, if you were here a couple weeks ago, I was gesturing with my hand and accidentally knocked the cable out of my microphone. But now it's like this one. This is a good one. Look how it's a good cable when it like is like has these little. I don't know. It's like colored. It's not just like a plain black. It's got that like protection around it. So anyway, I guess we've lost Brian. I wonder if he's gonna come back. Oh, I should check my messages. Maybe he's messaged me. He has not. Okay. Well, I guess I could look into this Clayton Keller situation. That would be man, Arizona, just like people have been streaming them forever because they're a great schedule. And like no one has been like especially good. I like Gunther. Sorry, I don't say Gunther. But I think he scored today. But what have the lines been? Oh yeah, so Keller hasn't even played that much today. Oh yeah, Keller with Schmaltz and Hayton. Okay, yeah. So that's big news. I have Dersey in Kakupful. This guy is just totally disappeared, and he's been on the top power play the whole time. Oh, I guess he did get a couple power play assists in the last couple games. I didn't even notice. But before that, it was like pointless for so long. Oh, there's Brian.
hey.
Hey, everything okay?
Yeah, could we restart Audacity?
Sure. Won't get my King Hippo
I'm
story.
I'm really sad I missed it actually. Like I'm really sad. I don't
It's
want
okay.
to
I'll tell you later.
I mean,
Or do you want
I'll watch the recording, but I also wish I could have
me?
responded to it live.
You definitely won't. Don't lie.
I
But okay.
will. I want
You're
to
gonna
know the
watch the
story.
recording? Oh, okay.
I want to know what Jason S has to do with King Hippo.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we don't have time now.
Yeah.
So let's count me in.
3, 2, 1, record.
Okay, recording. And I guess let's just start the show here.
Let's do it.
Okay. Always got to start with a good throat clear. Yeah! Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, co-hosted by a guy who on one hand is loving his couple team's production this week, but on the other is just so frustrated and mad that a little piece of it couldn't have come last week when I needed it. Oh my gosh, Brian, I'm having like the best week ever. I'm trending like toward it. I'm being projected to have like 353 points by the end of this week. It's insane. Last week
Wow.
I had 220 and I lost by 5 points. I'm looking at like I don't even know. I'm looking at Tage Thompson. Like where were you? You know, like Nick Ehlers had a 2 goal game. He had like a whole bunch of nothing. Like couldn't just spread the wealth a little bit. But anyways, this is head to head. This is fantasy hockey, and I'm excited to talk about all of these players and many more on tonight's episode. Have I even introduced you? No. With me, of course, the Poop Up Prognostication, the IPP MVP, the greatest fantasy hockey co-host a guy could ask for. It's Brian Cum. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm in like a different couple situation where I'm having a good week, but I wasn't expecting to. Like what I was down 11 games in the projection, and like that held through the week. And by about Wednesday or Thursday, I was like, I'm cutting bait. I'm cutting my losses. I'm gonna save my moves with this like nagging feeling in the back of my mind that like I know like one lesson in the cupful that I try and share is um, can you hear me?
Yeah, one less in your share. I'm bated
That's
breath here.
that's so. Oh, okay. No, because my mic says I'm muted. Okay,
Okay.
hang on. Okay, okay, perfect. Sorry. One lesson I've learned in the cupful is to never take your foot off the gas. Like this is one of the things. Like you just go hard the whole time unless you're really sure. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure enough. Anyway, I see now I'm checking my matchup. Unfortunately, for the first time since games started today, I'm projected to lose by only 5 with an empty spot on my roster and 2 unused moves. And that
What?
hurts. I
Why didn't
know.
you at least use the moves?
Well, because I was gonna wait to use them like yesterday or today for next week.
Right.
And gosh, I think I might have blown it.
Well,
Anyway,
this
so
is
that
this is
it's
parent life.
rough. It's rough. Like and so I actually thought you were talking about me. Who said like finally he's getting some production from his players, but like I feel also like my player product. Like I have Kaprizov. I see Schmaltz is going off tonight. I've had some really great performances, and I'm about to just I blew it. I messed up. Anyway, I'm happy to be here with everybody to talk about the weeks to come, to set our sights on what's up next. And thanks everyone for listening. Oh, especially those of you who shared that you're not in a league and listening. I appreciate that a lot. Like, so there are some of you out there. We have. Can I shout them out quickly, Elon, at the top? Who
Go
are
for
you to
it.
stop me?
Who
Well,
am
you,
I?
you would sound mean. Okay, so we've got Casey Win 66, who is a patron and not a Windows executable, which that's what they claim. Who says not in the league at all for the first time in 15 years, but listening. So thanks. We have Vase Connoisseur, who's also a patron and has like this really funny Wind Waker link avatar. Anyway, says listens for the bickering, top tier bickering. So thanks. I appreciate. I think we've fine-tuned our bickering over the years. Like it was once a little much, and I think we've it sounds like we have the right amount. Nick wrote us on Twitter, says they use us for like daily fantasy. I'm like, I think that's kind of cheating. Like I think that still counts as like being invested in a league,
Oh,
like having an outcome.
I thought you meant like it's cheating in daily
Oh.
fantasy. Like you're not supposed to be allowed to listen to a podcast. No one else is. You have an unfair advantage.
And then we had the pseudonymous Amelia, who told us that the vibes are good enough, and she uses us to like call people out in their conversations when they like think that they know the most about hockey, which is nice. Like I like that. If you can like use us to show other people up who like want to talk like they know what they're doing but they don't, please. That's a perfect use for the show, and to
Oh,
make friends like based on their draft picks, knowing who's smart in the room when people are talking fantasy, when they're around fantasy people. So thanks to everyone listening. If you're in a league, we appreciate you too. But it was really nice to hear from some of you who weren't. So hi, thanks for continuing to listen.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully, this person didn't like go to someone who was like, I really think that Bobby McMahon is like a huge player for the Leafs, and then listen to the last episode and then so then she was like, well, actually, he's just like rode like a high shooting percentage. No way this is gonna keep up, because then we made her look dumb because he's continued. Brian, let's start there. It's not the plan for the show, but
Okay.
we have to redo this Bobby McMahon tick. I think I'm the host. I get the easy job, right? I'm just like telling the stats. I'm like, who is this guy? He's crushing it. And then you were very just like, like, trust me, we don't need to worry about Bobby McMahon. Like, who don't even give him a second thought. And now, like, look at this guy. So I assume we have to redo it and say, add this guy or at least consider him.
Yeah. Now he's like, I think, I'm gonna say, like I want to say Callie Yarncroke territory of Leaf streamer, except better because at least he shoots. Like McMahon has 3 or more shots in 3 of his last 5 games, including 7 in his last 2, and that's with not a lot of ice time. Like that's big shooting output. Again, remember when we talked about McMahon for the first time? 27 years old, career like AHLer, journeyman, and like a scorer in the AHL, but played his first NHL games last season, had 10 of them, averaged 10 and a half minutes a night. And I'm still going to say that Bobby McMahon is probably not going to keep up what he's doing. He had 7 goals on 14 shots. And then like in the rest of the span, he's got 3 assists, and this is over his last 7 games. So like maybe he'll have 3 assists every like 7 or 8 games because he's playing with Tavares still, right? Like that's a good place to be. But I'm still not thinking that the goals will keep coming. Yeah, he was added in a limited yearly moves. Like I'm in a league where you have 25 moves for the year. Someone added Bobby McMahon yesterday, and I was like, even with the current run, I think you're sort of jumping in a little late. You know who I wish we did mention though on that show, when we were talking about Bobby McMahon? I don't think we did. Was Matthew Nyes, who's been pretty good as the new third wheel with Matthews and Marner. I don't know if you've been keeping track, but he's up to 7 points in his last 9 games, at least 2 or more shots in 8 straight, throws hits, gets an occasional block, 0 power play time, of course, but decent. Like he can get you 2 or 3 shots a night, pop a couple hits too, and then the points aren't like so unlikely. So I don't know, Elon. Call me crazy. I'll take Matthew Nyes over Bobby McMahon. And you can argue if you choose, and Trev will keep track of us accountability wise for that. But I
didn't
Matthew,
disagree.
like,
Trev doesn't have to. You haven't even let me disagree yet.
Okay.
You're like, Trev,
Well,
keep track. And in a month it'll be like, Elon was totally wrong. I'm just sitting here.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think that's I think Matthew Nyes is someone who maybe we've passed over a little bit because he's sort of been here and then been gone. But he's stuck on that top line for a while now. He's been reasonably productive. Only 1 point in his last 3 now. But as long as he's there, he's like we talked about Corey Perry last week. I'd rather Matthew Nyes.
Okay. Yeah, I think Nyes is fine. Like he's gonna be really great. Like he's a prospect that people are excited about on the Leafs. It's awesome that he's playing with Matthews, who scores like a hat trick every game. I'm surprised actually he doesn't have more production considering all the goals being scored, while he's on the ice. But yeah, he's good. Like I would probably take him over Bobby McMahon as well. I guess McMahon is a better bet for goals since like you're crazy if you're on a line with Matthews and you're not just passing to him. Marner's getting a whole huge handful of assists. Obviously, it helps to have the power play. But yeah, I'll take that ranking, sure. So Trev doesn't need to come back. And comparison, I definitely won't bicker with you, Brian, because like you said, that's old Elon. That's our old podcast with the too much bickering. Now we have just the right amount of bickering, and this is not going to be one of those moments. But okay, here's my plan. I haven't even said what the plan is for the show. We got the Leafs talk out of the way. You know how it is. You have a Canadian podcast. You got to get the Leafs talk out first, because that's where the sponsorship money comes, and then we can talk about the rest of the league, the second tier teams in the league. But okay, so we are of course presented by Dabber Hockey. I'll mention that, and I'm going to be using Frozen tools once again today. Here's the plan. We're going to go through every team like usual, and the order is going to be based on, because this is like we're like coming up to the end of the season. I mentioned this on Matchup Maximizer earlier today. We need to be thinking super short term. So what's more short term than just looking at like this past week? Who are the leading scorers in the NHL over the past week? And then we can talk about that, because I don't care about what someone's done like all season. Like obviously I do a little bit, but it's like, I need to know what they've done recently and hope that that can continue. And so yeah, we're going to look at the leading scorers from the past 7 days. And then as we go through them, we'll talk about some interesting players on their teams. So that's the plan. And right at the top, Brian, a guy on your couple team that you mentioned, over the last 4 games and the leading scorer over that span in the entire NHL, Kirill Kaprizov, 12 points in 4 games. Of course, a lot of those points came from that game against Vancouver on Monday. 3 goals and 3 assists in that insane, what was it, 10-7 at the end over Vancouver? I think it was 10-7 for
Yeah.
Minnesota. Just an incredible result. And obviously, Kaprizov has kept it up. He just had 2 goals and an assist yesterday on Saturday versus Seattle for the 5-2 win. So yeah, Minnesota is scoring some goals, and Kaprizov's right at the top. And I don't know how much there is to say about him, but obviously there were times earlier in the year where he was seeming like maybe he wasn't performing at the level that he was being drafted at. But at this point, he's awesome. And Brian, I think another thing that I hope that Amelia didn't go and correct her friends about was that Matt Zuccarello, because I think this is another one. We'll get our flubs out of the way early on this show and then talk about all of the things we got right. But didn't we say last week that maybe Zuccarello was someone that is droppable because he was off the top line, like top power play is still good, but if Minnesota's been stacking with Eriksson, Ek, Kaprizov, and Boldy, and so kind of leaving Zuccarello out in the cold, and he was cold, but he is cold no longer because he also had an incredible week, 10 points in his 4 games. Again, like a lot of that came 4 points versus Vancouver in that game, but he also had 4 assists in the game against Seattle. 2 on the power play, so obviously that helps. So I think hopefully not many people took our advice to drop Zuccarello, because they'd probably be really mad at us right now.
I don't think the advice was to drop Zuccarello, though. I think it was he's still on the power play, which alone makes Zuccarello worth holding. And gosh, yeah, I'm glad he was still on the power play. And 7 of Zuccarello's last 10 points have come via the power play. So actually, Elon, I think our take was pretty spot on, which was that you can't really rely on Zuccarello at 5-on-5 production, given that he's off that top line, and the Wild have stacked it with their 3 best players. But he's still worth holding on to in case he gets back on that top line. And in the meantime, that power play 1 deployment is reason to hold on for at least another week or however many games we said. And gosh, yeah, for anyone who dropped him early, I'm sorry. I swear it wasn't me. Kaprizov, by the way, holy freaking cow. What 18 points in his last 18 games. He has 4 or more shots in 5 of his last 7 games, and he is winning people weeks left and right. I saw the stat today that Nikita, all season I've said, like, I picked Kaprizov over Kucherov. This is like not quite exactly what I was expecting. Like, this is beyond, but it takes the sting off just a little when I see Kucherov was the fastest Tampa player to reach 100 points. He got his 100th point this season in, I think it was 59 games. Thanks Credit Game Day Stats over at GameDayTweets.com for that little nugget. Yeah.
Should we credit the beat writer that we retweeted?
Well, I don't know who the beat writer was.
Yeah, who cares?
It was Thea?
No, I said via Game Day Stats.
Oh, Thea.
Who's Thea?
Okay. Isn't there like I don't know.
Okay.
Thea Stilton, for anyone who has children reading books right now. It was yeah. Not Thea Stilton. Yeah. So what else did I want to say about? Oh yeah, just the Minnesota power play that Zuccarello's a part of has been crazy. They have a power play goal in 7 of their last 8 games, including just over their last 4. They are 8 for 20, and you can actually go back I don't know, like to mid-December, and the Wild have basically been converting at about 33% or 30% of their opportunities. So that's been a really fantastic place for anyone to be, which was reason to hold Zuccarello. And we'll see, like, if this is lit a fire that can be sustained for Kaprizov and co for the rest of the season, or at least another week or two, that could certainly change people's playoff fortunes.
Yeah, no, he's been great. That power play has been incredible. Somehow Brock Faber, who's on
I
that
was
power
just
play,
about to say,
yeah,
yeah.
he's sort of missed out. He did get an assist in that last game against Seattle. I personally wouldn't be like too worried. Like it's obviously frustrating when there was that 10-goal game and he got nothing, but like whatever.
Yeah.
Just hockey's weird.
Well, here's the thing though. Like Brock Faber has disappeared like almost completely from the stat sheet. Like he was pointless in 5 before he got the assist against Seattle on Saturday. And he has gone without a shot in 3 of his last 4 games. So that's not and like no real like sure a hit and maybe a block. So no other peripherals to speak of. So I'm not saying to drop Faber. Faber's been so good. And Elite Prospects actually had a nice article. Was it last week or the week before? I don't. At some point about how Brock Faber. Remember we were talking about him when he was traded, saying like, don't think that he's going to be the second, like some huge offensive defenseman. And they actually tracked how he was never really an offensive prospect, but has since developed his game into one, which is interesting. So hopefully, like that's all to say that I don't think the run of production Faber had was luck. But I also would like to see something pretty soon to just reassure me that Brock Faber can continue being productive the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that anyone who drops him now is going to be giving a gift to someone else. Like to me, like like obviously the shots disappearing recently isn't great, but before that he was shooting pretty well. So I don't think he's forgotten how to shoot. Like unless there's like some underlying injury, I'm seeing huge minutes still top power play. That's enough for me. As long as he's playing 25 minutes a game and he's on the top power play, I find it hard to believe that he, in Minnesota, if they keep scoring all these power play goals, you got to imagine he'll get more. But okay, Brian, we should move on to the next team here. So, like I said, Kaprizov #1 over the last week, Zuccarello #2. Then we have Mitch Marner. I guess we've covered the Leafs. One thing I wanted to mention about the Leafs, though I shouldn't mention, so Marner 10 points in his last 4 games, 9 assists. Of course, he's just dishing to Matthews. But in Toronto, we should mention that Ilya Samsonov, holy cow, he's really turned. Like it looked like he was like out of the league. He got sent to the minors. Like if it wasn't for injuries or whatever, who knows what could have happened? Like, but Wool's been out, so obviously the Leafs had to go back to Samsonov, and he's like now he's looking good. He's got 5 wins in his last 5 games. 3 of them were like especially good games, but even like letting in 3 goals for the Leafs is like totally fine because they score so much. So in fantasy, I'm sure a lot of people just got him out of free agency, especially after he got sent to the minors, right? And so he's been, that's just goalies in fantasy. But keep in mind that Joseph Woll is like healthy now. He's in the minors, like having his rehabilitation stint or whatever that's called. So I'd imagine he'll come soon, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not a guarantee that Woll just like takes over as the starter since like Samsonov has won 5 in a row, like I said. But yeah, so on one hand, good, Samsonov good. On the other hand, don't expect him to play every game because Woll is better than Martin Jones.
Samsonov has won 5 in a row. That's true. His last 4, he's had an 898 save percentage though. So like you can win with Toronto. And like he's not seeing a lot of volume. Like he's faced 21, 26, 29 shots in his last 3. He's given up 8 goals, combined 2 goals, 3 goals, 3 goals respectively. 0 quality starts in Samsonov's last 4. So like I'll just sprinkle that in. Although I did see a suggestion, although it might have been like AI written, like in a player blurb, that when Woll comes back, the Leafs might still split time between all 3 goalies. That's
What?
interesting.
No,
No,
that's not gonna
it
happen.
had to be AI. Like I didn't see the source, but because I think Woll, I think the Leafs need Woll to be sharp for the playoffs. He's been far and away their best goalie, really, that they've had in at least 2 years, probably more. So I would say that he gets at least 2 of every 3 so long as he's healthy. And apparently he's off to a good start with a fantastic AHL start against Laval.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that makes sense. I think you're right. Like I don't think that yeah, so maybe it will be I could see them going 50-50 for a little while. Though I guess they're racking up all these wins now, so maybe like you said, maybe they don't have to worry so much about winning now and they can work on just getting Wool ready for the playoffs. So yeah, I could see it happening. So anyways, Thanks, Samsonov, for the production recently. But yeah, definitely it's about to fall off, at least the volume. And like you say, I guess even the save percentage hasn't been that incredible, but the Leafs just score so many goals. All right, we've done 2 teams. Let's do one more before the break, at least. Next up on the list, fourth overall over the past week, JT Miller. 9 points in 4 games for this stud. Remember at the start of last year, Brian, when everyone was hating him and like laughing at the Canucks for having signed this big deal? Now he's like just having such an incredible season, up to now 79 points in 60 games for JT Miller. That's a 108-point pace. He's having a career year, and capped by most recently yesterday 3 assists versus Boston and 8 hits in that game. So if your league counts hits, also 4 shots. Just I have him in my dynasty league, which is a categories league, and I'm in the playoffs. And like Miller is like my stud. Like I'm so happy I have him on my team. But anyway, not too much to talk about with him. The player I think we need to talk about. We had a question from Elisa. Actually, this might have been like for last week's show, but I guess we can just continue it because it has continued. Elias Lindholm is not doing very well. Like it was supposed to be like this sure thing that Lindholm was going to come play on like a line with Pettersson and do so well. Like it is not happening at all. In fact, the lines in the last game had Pettersson with Hoglander and Mikheyev. This is a game against Boston. Miller, Besser, and Pius Suter. And then Lindholm was on the third line with Connor Garland and Arshdeep Bains, who apparently has been getting rave reviews. So cool to see him make the team. But yeah, Elias Lindholm, I would be very frustrated if I had him if you traded for him, excited about this Vancouver thing. Like right now where he's pointless in his last 3 games, 1 assist in his last 5 games. The power play time is down. The last couple of games, he's been less than 50% power play time. So Elias Lindholm may be a good acquisition for Vancouver, for them to just be able to have more depth, and like he's a good defensive player or whatever. But this is not turning out to be this like huge offensive burst. If anything, he's looking like he was better off in Calgary for that.
Yeah, even though he wasn't having a good season in Calgary, right? So but generally, I suppose you could safely say that's true. Lindholm has 6 points in 11 games as a Canuck. Most of those are goals. I think 4 of them, and he's shooting 20%, which isn't crazy actually. Like I mean, it is crazy, but just on a small sample, it's like not unreasonable that Lindholm can convert that often. He usually converts on about 15% of his of the shots he takes. I will say in Vancouver, Lindholm's like shot share numbers are good. So like you said, Elon, even if he's not producing for fantasy teams, he's hopefully doing what he should be doing for Vancouver. Although the expected goals share is also not great. So I think it's been a bit of a bumpy ride for Lindholm coming into the Vancouver system and trying to figure out how it's going to work. You mentioned he's on the third line, which stinks. What also is something to watch for is last game against Boston on Saturday, Lindholm was cycled off that top unit in favor of, it looks like, Tyler Myers. Like they went for like a 3 forward 2D output, and like someone can tell me if that's because Lindholm was in the box or unavailable for some other reason. But I would just be I'd be watching to see if that's something that continues. He had 5 shots in that game against Boston, but before that he had 2 shots in his last 4 games, which isn't what you want to see from Lindholm. So he's someone to Elon. I don't think I would drop Lindholm before I drop Zuccarello. Just to sort of place him. Like I think Lindholm. Well, okay, no, but just like we're trying to think of like in the grand scheme of things in most leagues, of course it depends on how deep your format is. But if you were thinking about dropping Zuccarello in your format last week, then I assume you would be thinking of or going ahead and dropping Lindholm, unless you can afford to be patient, because I still think it can pay off. Elon, there's a couple other Canucks that I just really want to touch on briefly. You mentioned Pettersson's top line with Hoglander and Mikheyev. You'd think that would be good for either of them, but they are both pointless in their, like, Hoglander and Mikheyev are pointless in their last 3 Mikheyev, and like have a record of just not being terribly productive. And then one other guy that I just want to touch on, Elon, I don't know if I'm selling high on Brock Besser in this moment, but he has he was cold, right? He had a 5-game or 6-game scoring drought that he snapped almost a week ago against Minnesota in that crazy game. But he's been pretty quiet, and he's also not shooting a ton. He had 4 shots. Everyone was shooting against Boston on Saturday night, but going into that game, Besser had only more than 2 shots in 1 of his last 5. And I'd like to see the shots return. I'd like to see the assists return, because he's sort of been riding this unsustainable shooting percentage to like be a point per game player. Whereas I think with regression, maybe he lands closer to 65. But he also needs to keep shooting, and those have fallen away a bit or become less consistent. And I would just like, if your trade deadline's coming up and you've relied on Besser to get where you are, I just think maybe you should poke around and kick tires and see if there's anything you might be able to get back for him.
Yeah, okay. So, by the way, in the chat, Taylor pointed out it was Hronik on the top power play, not Tyler Myers.
Well, that was another. That was a different configuration, I think.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. I know that they talked on short shifts earlier in the week that Hronik had bumped Lindholm from the top power play. But yeah, I guess they could keep changing things around. I definitely am not concerned about Brock Besser. Like, yeah, maybe he won't be like as incredible as he was at the beginning of the year, but like we said, like with JT Miller being so awesome and like Besser being with him in all situations, I think he'll be fine. If I had to rank my panic of the cold players we've been talking about, I'd say I'm least panicked about Besser, then Faber, and then a big gulf. And then Elias Lindholm, who I think might be droppable for you if you need to win now.
Yeah, I'll co-sign on that.
Yeah, third line, second power play. Get out of here. Sorry. Like, and Vancouver's schedule next week, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Like, if you're not even fitting Lindholm in until Sunday, it's a tough hold. So, all right, Brian, let's take a break. And then when we come back, we'll continue down this list of the hottest players from the past week of NHL action. You're listening to Keep It Karlsson. Okay, we are back, Brian. We've gone through the top 4, and next up is Joel Eriksson Ek, and we've already talked about Minnesota. Ek has 9 points in his last 4 games. Next up, of course, here he is, Connor McDavid, 8 points in his last 4 games, all assists. McDavid is just, a generous player lately, just like passing the puck often to Zach Hyman, who is having himself an incredible run, 5 goals now in his last 4 games. I'm sure all assisted by McDavid. I haven't fact-checked that, but I wouldn't be surprised. So it's been, Hyman might be like the best like bargain contract in the NHL right now. Like I think he's making like $5.5 million a year. And the Oilers did a really good job taking him for that price. Imagine if he was a UFA after this season. You'd imagine he would get like so much more. There was a tweet from Game Day Stats. Shams retweeted from Bob Stouffer. Hyman as an Oiler. I don't know. It's just a bunch of numbers that just make him look like really incredible. So good for him. We had a question, Brian, from Ryan9139 wanting us to talk about Stuart Skinner, who has been brutal lately. That's a quote. But yes, it's again, these goalies are so hard. Like I feel like it was just a few episodes ago we were talking about Skinner as like if we were doing Schmore goalies board, we'd put him in a clear tier 1 because he plays all the time, does really well. All of a sudden now he let in 5 goals against Calgary in the last game. In his game before that, he let in 6 goals against Boston, then 3 against Arizona. I'm just going backwards. 5, 4, 3. It's been since like February 6th, he led in 2 goals. That's the last time he's led in fewer than 3 goals. So it's been a really rough ride for Stuart Skinner. But at the same time, like, what are you going to do, right? Like, unless, do you have any reason to be, like, especially concerned that something is wrong?
No, I think that's I don't know if something's wrong, if, like, something's tweaked and he's not feeling great, or I can't tell yet in this sample if anything is, like, particularly devolved in the Oilers' defense. Like, I don't think, Elon, that there's any injuries like on the back end where guys they were relying on are no longer available to play as much as they were. But yes,
that I know of. No.
Skinner's an .858 save percentage over his last 6. He hasn't been pulled, which I guess shows that like they're willing to just go for it with him. And he's still only lost 3 of those in regulation. So like you said, what are you going to do, right? Pickard's last 3 performances were .842, .889, and .889. And that's over the last 2 weeks. So no better from him. And I think it's kind of like what I said about the Leafs with Wool. Like the Oilers will need Skinner going. So I don't think now is the time that Edmonton's going to pull the plug and try and find another solution in net. And so if you have Stuart Skinner, then hold on. And if you don't, maybe see if you could get him from somebody who's panicking. I guess that's the actionable advice here.
I think so too. Like I think a lot of these cold streaks we're talking about are like if your trade deadline is in a week, these are the guys you go after, right? Like if you need a goalie, now is probably the cheapest you're going to get Stuart Skinner, especially if the other team like has another goalie or maybe you have like someone who's been doing better lately. I still expect Skinner to be like one of the top goalies moving forward. It's just been a weird stretch, but Edmonton's an awesome team and he's been good for a long time. But again, it's goalie, so who the heck knows? Next up on the list,
Oh,
Brian.
yeah.
Oh,
Can I actually
yeah.
just I wanna I know we've gotta keep time and everything.
No, no, just do
Well,
let's
I just
relax. We're
wanna
just having a good time.
I wanna ask you about Evander Kane.
Yeah, he's cold again.
The hits and shots are coming. He hasn't had an assist in 12 games. And he has 6 goals in his last 12 on, like, again, decent shots, but no deployment, like, third line. It doesn't even matter if he's on the second power play in Edmonton because they play so rarely. What do you do? What do you do with Evander Kane? You holding him?
Yeah, I mean, look at I think of him as like look his overall season pace is 53 points. He was a 56-point pace guy last year. I feel like that like, that's what he is. Like he's going to shoot a lot, he's going to score sometimes, probably in bunches. I guess yeah, don't depend on him for the apples. He's not going to get you a lot of power play points, but he's good for hits, he's good for shots, and oftentimes like you can't score a goal without taking a shot. So there are going to be games where he gives you like a lot
Yeah.
of points if your league counts, if goals are worth more than assists, especially. So I think, yeah, as long as you weren't expecting him to be more than he was last year, then I think he's meeting that expectation for you.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And I think he's not even like looking at his other numbers, he's not even what we could have expected him to be last year. I mean, he's only a few points off pace. But I think it's just if you have Evander Kane, we should know by now he's not a set and forget guy anymore. But I just want to make that a little more apparent. I have him in Cupful. He was like tossed in a trade that I accepted, and I'm still like feeling pretty ambivalent about him. But like you said, if the hits and shots keep coming, then like eventually there's going to be enough scoring here and there to just make him worthwhile enough.
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't drop him in Cupful. Or like if he was dropped, I would go for him, I should say, in my division. I did talk about Edmonton on Matchup Maximizer earlier today. By the way, they have a good schedule next week. Taylor's saying that he added Ekholm. So yeah, Ekholm is a little bit hot lately. So it's always hard to stream people in from Edmonton. It's like the big guns are taken, and then you can go for like like we talked about Corey Perry or like whatever, Warren Fogle, who once in a while get in a good spot, but the lines change. And then next thing you know, they're like in the bottom 6. But okay, Brian, so going down the list here, next up, Jared McCann is having himself a week, 7 points, and only in 3 games. Is Seattle playing today? I'm not sure, but yeah, it's been incredible. He had 2 goals against Detroit, then a goal and 3 assists against Vancouver, and then he had an assist in the loss to Minnesota yesterday. So McCann definitely making up for a bit of a slow start to start the year, proving that last year was no fluke. And so good for anyone who drafted him and held on. And along with McCann, we should mention that Jordan Eberle is on a nice little run, and he's a guy who probably you could have gotten it in free agency at points during the season, depending on how deep your league is. Maybe you still can, though I'd imagine your time would be running out because he's got 5 points in his last 4 games. Eberle's been shooting a decent amount, so I think that Eberle is definitely someone to look at, especially playing with the red hot Jared McCann.
Yeah, I think you covered the forwards well. I'm going to toss out a goalie. We were wondering. Remember when Grubauer returned, and I was like, is he going to play? Are they going to ever put him in net? So they finally did, and we didn't talk about it. They might have covered it on short shifts. On February 13th, Grubauer made his first start in 2 months against the Islanders. He stopped 26 of 27 for a win. And then he didn't get back in net until about 10 days later against Vancouver, where he stopped 19 of 21 for the win. And then Grubauer came on in relief for Joey Decord in
Yep.
the game against Minnesota on Saturday after Decord gave up 4 goals on 13 shots. And Grubauer came in. It wasn't enough to pick up the win, but he stopped 17 of 18 for a 944 save percentage. So I'm just I'm wondering if Grubauer gets the next start. He's Grubauer, right? It's been so long since we've seen him be reliably good, and Decord has just had 2 bad starts back to back, and so we're not going to overreact to anything, but I think it's at least just taking note of.
No, for sure. Like I think it's more like you're a little bit more nervous now with Decord that he might not play every
Yeah.
single game. Yeah. All right, so let's keep on going down this list of leading scorers over the past week. After, wait,
It's going to be Dylan Strome.
why did I even bring up? Uh, has things? Oh, I guess things have changed since. All of a sudden, I refreshed the page by mistake, and now the
Oh,
order is different.
I see
But
Trocheck and McKinnon ahead of
yeah,
McCann.
well, whatever. They all have 7 points, so it's fine. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Who are you gonna go? Okay,
Okay,
I'm gonna
now I have the.
refresh my page.
I'll do Trocheck, I guess,
I'll
because he's
refresh
next,
my page so I
and
know
I'll
where
try
you're
not to
going
refresh
next.
anymore. Okay, all right,
Okay, no more refreshing.
deal.
Okay.
All right, so moving down the list here, there's a bunch of players who actually had 7 points over this past week, along with McCann. First up, we can say Vincent Trocheck, who is also having like a nice bounce back season, right? Like similar to, I guess, at Everly. I don't know. Like I don't know why I said also, because I'm trying to think now who I said before was doing that. But Trocheck, after being kind of like a meh player for his last couple of years, like really has picked it up this year. 55 points in 59 games now. 7 points, like I said, in his last four. This is including a pointless game today versus Columbus. So I guess it just goes to show how good he was before that. But yeah, Vincent Trocheck is awesome on the Rangers playing with Panarin. Panarin is of course great, and another guy who's doing really well that we at some point we're talking about how he was struggling a little bit, but since then like Igor Shesterkin, wow, 5 wins in his last 5 games, and this is not a Samsonov situation. Like a lot of these are like really quality starts, and the Rangers are letting in a lot of shots. But Shesterkin just stopping them all. Like his last 3 games, he's letting 1 goal in each of them, and with 40 or more shots in each of those games. So Shesterkin, in your like leagues like a cupful where you get more points for saves, the more saves the better. He's like really coming through right now and proving that he should be along with Stuart Skinner in the top tier moving forward, and Shesterkin looking like a lot better at the moment.
Thank goodness, right? Because if you drafted him high, which you like, if you decided to invest in a goalie, he was not paying off that investment. So I'm glad he's back, and we'll see. We'll hope he can hold on. He's never looked human before, so we'll see what happens next. Trocheck, for the record, 76-point pace, because he's getting huge power play deployment this year. That top unit, he's on it, and they're playing a lot. Trocheck seeing a 75% share of the Rangers' power play time, and is actually seeing basically a career high 21 and a half minutes a night, thanks to that power play time. 19 power play points in 59 games for Trocheck. He's actually, his 5-on-5 scoring is good all the time. We've seen this, right? And then it's that power play, and that power play is working out for him too. So I think the 76-point pace is sustainable the rest of the way. So way to go, Vincent Trocheck. And then the other guy I want to bring up on the Rangers is Alexis Lafreniere, who Elon, in his last 11 games, has had 3 or more shots in 10 of them. 10 of them. That's good. That's
Hey.
huge. Yeah, averaging, just about 3 shots per game over his last 11. He has scored on 6 of them. So he's shooting like 17.5%. I don't know why I hesitated to try and be casual about that. I have 17.6% in front of me on my screen. And overall 9 points in his last 11. So that's great for Lafreniere. I think, was it Mason? Someone on our Discord server mentioned he's power play deployment away from being like a really, really fancy relevant player. Like right now, he's doing about as well as you can for most players without top power play deployment. Lafreniere is on a 50-point pace. He has stepped it up as of late after a slower start. So I just I keep shouting out Lafreniere because I think he's on his way, which we hadn't had really any indication that he was, which is nice to see. This is his age 22 season, so maybe he's on pace for like an age 23 or 24 breakout.
Yeah, unless you want to call this a breakout. Yeah, it's been really good. I think these 2020 draftees were getting annoyed at everyone saying Stützle, the runaway top pick of the draft, because, Byfield, they talked about on short shifts recently, like how he's really come on lately, and like Lafreniere, like you say. So maybe all of a sudden, I mean, Stützle's been pretty good. Like it's still going to take a while, I guess, for people to start saying that Stützle's not the clear number one if there were to be a redraft. But Lafreniere and Byfield are going to try their best to make it a competition, right? Okay, so next up in the list here, Trocheck, after after him, we got Boldy. We already talked about Minnesota, just like all those points from that one game. But then they've continued. Nylander. We've talked about the Leafs. Then we have a Nathan McKinnon. So yeah, 7 points in the last 4 games for him. Obviously not surprising. McKinnon and Rantanen continuing to roll and be incredible for the Avalanche. The big news recently is in the last game, Lehkonen was switched on to the top line to play with McKinnon and Rantanen, bumping Jonathan Drouin. And so Arturi Lehkonen, we talked about him recently about how like he kind of came on slow to start, but then when he came back from his injury. But lately he's been really good. He scored a goal in that last game against Toronto. Also scored a goal a couple games ago against Vancouver. Like I guess he hasn't been like totally lights out, but obviously I like him if he's going to be on the top power play like he has been, and especially now if he's going to be on the top line. I think Lehkonen definitely go grab him if you can. And also if it turns out that Drouin is bumped from that line, like I was almost gonna say like maybe drop Drouin. When I did the short shifts with Derek like a couple weeks ago, it was kind of like with Drouin, like what do? He's cold, but he's in such a good spot, and we both kind of came to the conclusion that he's probably just going to lose that spot at some point. So you might as well just drop him, and maybe that's about to happen. But yeah, pointless in 3 games for Jonathan Drouin. Maybe this like amazing, bounce back career rejuvenation season for him is not going to end well fantasy wise. Maybe he'll go into the playoffs and help the Avs do well, and it'll still be a success for him. I mean, it's just a great success for him to be playing every game and not be injured. But I don't think I'd have that much interest in holding Drouin on my fantasy team because he also barely shoots.
Yeah, like 1 shot a game most of the time. He had like a weird 5-shot game. But like sometime in the middle of this cold spell that Duran's currently in, just 2 points in his last 8 games. And even though he's mostly, like Elon, you said he was switched off, so we'll keep that in mind. But he started the game on Saturday against Toronto on the top line and remained on the top power play through the night. There wasn't much power play time for Colorado, but I don't see who else would take his spot. Yeah, I think Duran is, since Lehkonen's returned, he's looked very, very human. And I'm not sure if that's like really related. Lehkonen himself is also like, the points have sort of come. Lehkonen has, he's up to 8 points in his last 6 games, but he's got 5 goals on 13 shots in that span. So I have Lehkonen, and I really need to see this top line, top power play hold, because otherwise he's really just taking 1 or 2 shots a night, and he happens to be scoring on more of those than he should be. So Lehkonen, even while he's doing well, is someone to sort of like watch out for and not trust too much. But I'm encouraged by this top line deployment. And then I'll just mention Cale Makar, Elon, who we expressed our concern about because he was cold, and we were like,
we were not
worry.
concerned.
It's not, well, okay, right. Our fake concern, or our surprise, whatever, our disgust that that Makar had been pointless for, I think it was 4 games at that point. He went like the streak ended after 7 pointless games. Makar finally picked up a power play assist against Toronto and took 3 shots. So hopefully he's off the schneid, and it's only good things to come from Makar smoothly the rest of the way, as has been the case for his whole career.
Yeah, it's pretty wild that even with a 7-game pointless streak, he's still pacing for his best ever season. That just goes to show how well he was doing before that. Brian, I think it is time for me to pull out our once in a while bicker. I am going to disagree, I think, with you about Lehkonen. Like, I'm not worried. Like, if anything, things are just trending up for me, especially now seeing that he bumped Drouin in the last game. Like, sure, he's maybe scoring on more shots than he should, but I mean, top line, top power play. And even if he wasn't on the top power play, I just feel like, he was great last year, and like it took him a while to come back from injury, and like it took him a while to get going, but I'd be stoked to get Lehkonen. If he's available in free agency, I'd say just grab him now and don't worry about what Brian said. Just get him. Trust me.
I wonder if you're mischaracterizing what I said. Like, I'm willing to be patient, and the top line is another reason. Like I said, it's encouraging, but Elon, I don't know. Like, he needed top line and top power play last year to get to a 65-point pace, right? So if he doesn't have one of those things, he's losing a bunch of it. Okay.
Guess.
Yeah.
As long as Nichushkin is out,
don't expect it to be like it's not automatic yet from Lehkonen. It's not as automatic as I'd like it to be.
So yeah, Trev can put this down. I'm feeling really good about Lehkonen.
There's nothing to put down. I'm hopeful too. Okay,
I'm not hopeful. I'm confident.
Oh, okay. All right. So Trev, try and quantify that.
Yeah.
At all. Okay.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, I think he's definitely.
I hear you.
Good.
Like you would rush to add him. Like you would not, like you'd hold on to him with an iron fist. I get it. And I think I would do the same because the upside is there, especially with the recent change in deployment.
Right. Okay. So we are on the same page. No bicker. Was it a bicker? I don't know. The listeners can let us know. But
Kind
next
of a
up,
bicker, almost like a reverse bicker.
I guess. Yeah. Well, as long as we have a happy ending. I guess we could take a break and then we'll come back and continue down this list, Brian, where we've had a lot of players have big weeks last week, a lot of goals. And we'll continue talking about him in just a second. Listen, keeping Karlsson. Okay. Oh, I don't like this. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Brian and I are going down the list of the leading scorers from the past week and talking about some interesting players on those players' teams. We recently talked about McKinnon and the Avalanche, and then we've next up on the list here we've got Artemi Panarin. We already talked about Trocheck. Next up, look at this, Troy Terry, who's had a great week, 6 points in his last 3 games. Unfortunately, and that was, by the way, not including the game against LA where he went pointless. Terry had 2 straight 1 goal, 2 assist games. But yeah, unfortunately, he didn't dress today against Nashville. So I don't know if we know yet the extent of the injury, if it's a short or long term thing. The latest tweet from Derek Lee that I'm seeing on GameDayTweets.com, no Troy Terry for warmups. Look like Brett Leeson is drawing it in for him tonight. Terry briefly left last night's game and may still be feeling the effects of a hard hit into the boards. So yeah, I guess maybe we'll get more information at some point. Hopefully from Derek Lee. There's not that many Ducks beat writers out there that give us information, but that would be obviously a big bummer for him. And also, it'll be interesting to see. Like, let's take a look quickly at what the Ducks lines are today. Sans Terry, Sans obviously Zegras, who's been out for a while. Who's even like the top player? Like Vetrano, right? Vetrano, McTavish, and Leeson. Like, I guess it's a pretty good spot for Brett Leeson if you're in a deep enough league. And then I guess the other big line is Henry, Karlsson, and Killorn. Yeah, man, this is not a deep team already. And yeah, not having Terry or Zegras doesn't look too good. I'm not optimistic about the Ducks today. They are scoreless after 1 with Nashville. So good for them. Good for Lucas Dostal. Let's see if the no-name goalie can pull off another surprise win with the team shorthanded here.
Yeah, I think that's all there is to say, really. Like, no one's doing much in Anaheim. Leo Carlsson is someone I think we sort of went back and forth with on the last show. He's stayed cold, and without Terry and Zegras, it could be dark times for the Anaheim offense.
Yeah, they have a good schedule next week, like later in the week. They go Thursday, Friday, Sunday. So I talked on Matchup Maximizer about some guys to target. Maybe you look at a Killorn. Adam Henrique is like one of the few people on the team that's doing really well outside of Terry. So there could. And Vetrano. Vetrano, I just assume is like not available to people anymore. He's having such an incredible season. But yeah, don't think it's really good for anybody that Terry is out. But he got the mention early in the show here because of his great week. Okay, next on the list here, Zach Hyman, 6 points in his last 4 games. Matthews, 6 points, 4 of them goals, of course, probably all assisted by Marner. Then Draisaitl, and then we go to LA. Adrian Kempe having himself a week, 6 points in his last 4 games, including 2 assists versus Anaheim yesterday. He's on a 4-game point streak. He took 5 shots, Adrian Kempe, in that game against Anaheim, and 7 shots in the game before versus Nashville. So he's, doing a really great job of proving that, his breakout season wasn't a fluke. And if anything, he's like surpassing that now. He had 66 points last year, pacing for 75 right now. LA, we talked about last week, have like changed up their lines a little bit. Let's see, the most recent line combos for LA in that game yesterday against Anaheim had Kempe, with Laferriere and Kopitar. So Byfield was moved to play with Kaliev and Dubois. Like, these are like pretty odd lines, right? And then Fiala was with Deneau and Trevor Moore. I guess with Arvidsson injured, I guess that's the big news, which was talked about on short shifts. Like, Arvidsson is on LTIR. I'm going to assume out for the season. Maybe they're going to do the thing where if LA makes the playoffs, he comes back. Maybe they could even like pick someone up at the trade deadline because now they have all this cap space, and then he'll like miraculously be healed just in time, as the conspiracy theorists would say. So in the meantime, these lines don't look for real to me, Brian. Like, I feel like don't bank on these because I don't think it'll last. Like, Laferriere, that's a great spot for him with Kempe and Kopitar. If it does last, of course, though it's not like he's done too much with it. He's pointless in his last 4 games. But yeah, I guess the guy that I did want to bring up quick. Okay, a couple quick guys I'll mention and I'll throw to you to comment on them. First of all, Kevin Fiala, who we just talked about last week as being cold and being like, oh, I thought he was supposed to be like a second half guy. Well, I guess he listened and he's now doing well. He scored in 3 straight games, all power play goals, just 3 straight power play goals. So I guess that'll help. And then how about Matt Roy taking 10 shots in the last game as a defenseman? That's like pretty rare to see. And he's never really done, like, for the rest of the season, he's generally like 1 or 2 shots in most of his games. So I don't know where that came from. I imagine it won't happen again, but it was pretty wild.
Yeah, safe to assume. I also don't know exactly where it came from. I mean, he's actually he had a run. It was back in early January where Matt Roy, I'll say his full name in case you're not sure which Roy, had 4 or 5 shots like several times within a 2-week span, and to go with that had like 3 or 4 blocks and 3 or 4 hits. So it was really valuable peripherally then. And actually, all his peripherals had sort of calmed down leading up to this 10-shot game. So maybe his coach was like, "Get back in the game, Matt. Come on, do something." So he did. I don't know. It'd be great if his coach, like, if that's true, his coach just kept shouting that. Adrian Kempe is having a great season, 75-point pace. Here's the difference between this year and last. Last year, Kempe had 20 power play points. 11 of those were goals in 82 games. This season, in 56 games, Kempe has 17 power play points already. So 3 points away from that career high that he established last season. Interestingly, only 2 of those are power play goals. He is just racking up the power play assists, which is not what you'd expect from someone who's shown himself to be as great a shooter as Adrian Kempe. And he is still firing away on the power play, but only scoring on 5.5% of his shots, which of course is worse than what he's doing at 5-on-5, which, Elon, I'm just saying, like, I wonder if Kempe can do even better than the 75-point pace. Maybe if the
Ooh.
goals come on the power play more often, the assists will like fade away and everything will balance out. But I'd say, Kempe is at least a 75-point player. And if he can score and also keep assisting on the power play, there's a 85-point potential here.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah, so he's definitely really having I guess, later in his career breakout. But as a
Age
27-year-old,
27.
yeah, he's really coming into his own, kind of like a Brad Marchand career. Is that reasonable to say?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, like just in terms of timing, I don't know that like I'd really compare any other aspect of their game, but
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a few seasons of being like a meh player, and then all of a sudden now breaking out into a star. Okay, so let's continue down this list. This is so fun. So after Kempe is Brock Besser, who we talked about already, and so even though Brian has concerns, I guess he's still been helping his managers. I guess the shots are a bit down, but the results are good. 6 points in his last 4 games. Next up, we get to Kyle Connor, who is listed here as 6 points in his last 3 games. I'm not sure if that's including today's win against the Coyotes. That game just finished, and he scored 2 goals. So yeah, Kyle Connor's on a huge run right now. He's got 9 points in his last 5 games. Maybe if we were to reset this list right now, he'd be ranking higher. But yeah, so good for him, because I know he was cold for a little bit and people were concerned. And I definitely recall on the show, Brian, we were like, no concern, not even worth talking about. And this is the reason why. He's Kyle Connor. He's incredible. Also, Scheifele was on a cold streak going into today's game, so I was excited to say the exact same thing about him as we said about Kyle Connor before. But there's no need, because he's just had himself a huge game today. 1 goal and 3 assists. Was in on all 4 of the Winnipeg goals, so I guess that answers that question. Velarde, a goal and an assist. So yeah, that top line is good. Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde. And I think Velarde is someone who we've had some concerns about in the past. All I know is, and I think I've been consistent with this, top line, top power play in Winnipeg, yum, yum, yum. I like Velarde. If he's in free agency, go get him, I think. Like,
You
I
know
know.
who you know who else has stepped up when we were worried about them? Like Josh Morrissey has been quiet for a lot of the year, right? Like on and off, really since the calendar turned to 2024, he'd been like very quiet, like a point every handful of games, and unreliably so. Anyone who has Morrissey on their roster, though, must be very happy to have received 9 points, all assists, 3 on the power play in Morrissey's last 4 games, 10 shots to go with those. So hopefully this is Morrissey kicking off, throwing that whatever monkey was on his back there. And he's on a 63-point pace, which is still fantastic, less than last year, although we kind of wondered. I think we thought that Morrissey could keep up a good chunk of the 80-point pace. He's still at a 63-point pace, so he's not so far off. If he can continue staying hot, then he'll get there. But yeah, a nice surge for anybody who's been wondering where Josh Morrissey has been for 6 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I like Josh Morrissey a lot. Give me anyone on that Winnipeg top power play, which means Ehlers, even though he had that one big game, I'm still like kind of concerned about Ehlers. Like that was nice and helped me. I'm still concerned about what Ehlers is going to do for me next week. Now, okay, over in Calgary, we have Nazem Kadri next on the list of top scorers over the past week. In 3 games, 6 points, 4 of them goals. He's scored in like 3 straight games. Kadri is just like having such an incredible season, right? With this recent run, he's up to now a 72-point pace. Last year, he only had 56 points in the season in Calgary. He's kind of reminding me a little bit of like when Joe Pavelski, went to Dallas and was like quiet for his first year and then really came into his own after that. And like, so I wonder now, as a 33-year-old, how if Kadri is now like kind of going to be able to keep this up, for years to come now, similar to Pavelski. But yeah, definitely you could have gotten Kadri pretty late in drafts, and he's really coming through for you now. So yeah, shouts out to Kadri. And another big name in Calgary lately, more so, is Noah Hannafin, who, Calgary's probably really excited about this. If they're planning on trading him at the deadline because he's a UFA at the end of the year, it's pretty helpful that he just had a 2-goal, 1-assist game and 7 shots against the Oilers. I'm sure a lot of people were watching that game, and he probably just maybe gave Calgary a higher draft pick or a better prospect in return if they're going to move him.
Sure. Yeah. Hannafin's nice of him to show up. I think he was dropped in at least one cupful division, maybe a handful heading into that run. So too bad about the timing. But yeah, there's been a lot of productive Flames over the last few games. You've got, actually, I'm going to name all the point per game Flames over the last 3. Hannafin, Rasmus Anderson, Connor Zary, who's playing with Kadri, along with Martin Pospisil, who has points in 2 straight, Oliver Shillington, and Manjapani. So there's so, like the Flames have been very. Oh, and Huberdeau. Sorry, he has 4 points in his last 3 games. So it's nice to see Calgary with a little run of production here. Huberdeau, if you haven't like been paying attention, like he's pointing every other night, but multi-pointing every other night, and he's been steadily productive since New Year's Eve. So if he happens to still like have been dropped and nobody wants to like try taking a chance on him, Huberdeau is not who he once was, of course, but he is somebody worth rostering in just about every format.
No, I'm totally with you. Yeah, Huberdeau was dropped in like a couple division like a couple months ago or something. Like, and I remember I looked at him for a long time. I was considering him, and I went with someone else. Maybe it was like Jamie Benn or something. I don't even remember, but I made the wrong choice. I wish I just had grabbed Huberdeau, followed my instinct. But yeah, he's definitely turning his season around. And yeah, you mentioned Shillington. What a story, right? He hadn't been in the league for so long. And now he's come back, and yeah, points in 3 straight for Shillington. So good job on him, and I'm sure he's feeling really good about that. Okay, so Brian, I guess let's continue down our list here. So after Nazem Kadri, we've got Josh Morrissey, who we've talked about, and then Dylan Strome. Coming off a great week. Who would have thought that Strome would be the top Washington Capital, at least in total points, probably not in fantasy points, because it's been all 1 goal and 5 assists for 6 points in his last 3 games. But yeah, Strome definitely starting his new contract really well. He had a couple multi-point games in there, 1 goal and 2 assists against New Jersey, a couple assists against Tampa, and then yesterday the 1 assist against Florida. So Strome has been great. The big news, of course, out of Washington is that TJ Oshie is injured, and so that's going to throw a lot of things in flux, especially because that was the top line, right? It was Strome, Oshie, and Ovechkin, and things were going really well. In the last game, things were all mishmashed against Florida. Ovi was playing with Connor McMichael and Nicholas Aube-Kubel at even strength, and Strome was playing with Mantha and Tom Wilson. So who knows? Pacioretty was with Sonny Milano, who's back now, and Michael Scarbosa. These are also like lines, kind of like the LA lines, where I'm kind of like, I just don't believe it. And so I wouldn't bank on these holding. I did talk a lot about Washington earlier today in Matchup Maximizer because they have one of the best schedules of the week. And so it's really tricky to decide who to stream in. I think Connor McMichael is interesting, though. If he's going to stick with Ovi, he's like, I think one of Washington's highest pedigree prospects. Like this is a team that traded away lots of prospects to keep going for it. So maybe that's like not the most exciting praise, but I think Connor McMichael is someone who's starting to come on like a little bit, and I saw he got top power play in the last game, and also was playing with Ovechkin, so he's definitely someone that I'm looking at if you're in a deep enough league. And also, I guess Tom Wilson probably benefits now from Oshie being out. He finally broke out of his long slump.
I think you mostly covered it, Elon. I'm just looking at the Washington depth chart and noting how many players that I assume have Italian heritage. on their roster. You've got Anthony Mantha, Michael Scarbosa, Max Pacioretty, Sonny Milano. That's got to be one of the high. If I'm right, if my assumptions are correct, or what I think I know, that's got to be one of the highest representations. And they have a player named Pierrick.
Yeah, he just came in.
Yeah, from France. Pierrick Dubé.
I'll bet you if they have a potluck, it would be pretty good.
Oh, such a good. we've got to sort teams for one episode according to which team's potluck we'd most want to attend.
That would be fun. Okay, yeah. Someone will have to set us that list. I did have a question for you actually about Washington, Brian. Rasmus Sandin has points in 3 straight. Is there anything here? Like I said, Washington has a great schedule next week. You can get 4 games. Like, am I interested? Like, he's someone who we were super stoked about last year when they first acquired him because Karlsson was out, and he did like really well. And he was supposed to be also a high pedigree guy. He's a first-round pick back in 2018 for the Leafs. But yeah, he's been quiet most of the year. But hey, points in 3 straight. Is this anything?
Well, I'll do my thing where I clarify late first-round pick. Right.
Okay,
I
sorry.
know. Yeah. Like there is a big difference between top 10 and then top 15 and then top 30.
Yeah, aka trash. But yeah, he was drafted as an NHLer, so at least he has that to be proud of.
He has that to be proud of. I mean, he turns 24 in a couple weeks, so Rasmus Sandin still could be like a productive NHLer. It'll be interesting because John Karlsson will be there until Ovechkin is gone, and maybe a little bit past that. And then I'm not sure who's going to be left for Sandin if he's still there. All this to say, I don't think so, Elon, that Sandin is going to be like able to keep this up. He does have 7 points in his last 10 games. But the reason that concerns me a little is that 3 of those are goals on 16 shots. So that's a defenseman shooting about 20%. And that's not a way that I will count on a defenseman to keep producing, especially one who isn't on the top power play.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I'm going to be going out to add Sandin, but just wanted to check and make sure I wasn't missing something. Okay, Brian, this has been a blast of an hour going through a good chunk of this list. We'll take a break here. We'll end this episode because we've decided the brain trust to keeping Karlsson. People maybe don't want a 2-hour episode. If you disagree, let us know. I don't know. But we're taking this break. You could go download part 2. Hey, if you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson, then you should already get the episode. Brian, newly, by the way, we're now on YouTube Music. I just added us. Most of these podcast networks, you don't have to add the podcast. They should just find you. So it was kind of like annoying. It was kind of like, do you know who I am? I wanted to say that to YouTube Music. Like, we're a somewhat known podcast. Why do I have to waste time, adding? But anyways, whatever. Who are we really? So anyways, we're on YouTube Music if anyone listens.
YouTube Music should have been reaching out. You know what? I was chatting with a friend. It's just like I thought I had the obvious answer, but at least paused. Like made me think. Like, what do the platforms like Spotify or Amazon Music or YouTube Music or Apple, whatever, Google, Stitcher, what do they really gain? What do they gain from each play or download of our podcast? Nothing, right?
Well, I mean,
what's in it for them?
Well, Spotify specifically is like trying to sell a subscription to Spotify. So like they definitely want you in their app so they can be trying to promote that you subscribe to Spotify Premium.
Right.
And I'd imagine something similar for most of them. But like I use Pocket Casts to listen to podcasts, and I just paid for it. So they just have like so. But yeah, it's a good. I don't. Did I answer?
Or I don't think so. I don't know that we know. Okay. Like I said, it's like for it's for reputation. Like they want you to live in their ecosystem, so they're going to give you everything that they can. But like anytime anyone downloads, like for hosting Keeping Karlsson, like they don't get any. Like what's the benefit aside from having the best users podcast in the world?
Well, they get users, and then they can YouTube Music also. They have a premium product where you can stream all the music just like Spotify. But anyways, this is a good talk to have. We should hang out sometime in person, and then we can dive into maybe next patron meetup. But anyways, Brian, this has been fun. Like I said, we're going to take a break, go download part 2, and we'll be back with that. Well, for the people watching live, we'll be back in a second. I guess up to you when you're going to listen to part 2. But talk to you soon. Okay.
So
go for it.
Who's next? Vegas? Willie K?
So yeah, I have a different list than you because I have.
How did you did you change the sorting? Like this was the default sorting.
Okay, send me your link. Send me the link.
And no, it's okay. Let's refresh. But
maybe I have the wrong sorting. You're right. So just send me the URL that you're using.
It's the same one as you. It's the same one you sent me, and I just refreshed.
Okay, I'm gonna go and click it
So
now.
I have after all the 6-point players. Oh, for me now it's Shabbat, Velarde,
Ah,
Martinez,
should
or
have
is it?
like taken a screenshot or something. But anyway, all right. So now I have next Kempe. Oh, I hope we haven't skipped anyone. But yeah, now I have
We
also
haven't skipped
Shabbat
anyone.
next. Okay, so
Oh,
we're on the
do you
same
have
page
Shabbat,
now.
Velarde, Martinez, Doughty?
Shabbat, Velarde, Martinez, Dowdy. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
so
we're
we
on the
have the
same.
same list now. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Should I start coming with a sigh?
That's up to you.
Welcome back. We're here for the second part of this week's mega show on Keeping Karlsson. My name's Brian Com, and we have been covering the top scorers, the top producers of this past week. Because as we get to the end of your fantasy season, we are getting more in the "What have you done for me lately" category, which is what we're trying to take care of on this episode. Like I said, I am one of your faithful co-hosts, and the other with me here is Elon Dabrowski. Elon, welcome to the second part of the show.
Thanks, Brian. I'm stoked to talk about some of these players. We still haven't talked about a couple of the players I was most excited to talk about. I'll just throw their names out there right now. Brian, you nailed. I'm just gonna. Okay, before we get back to our format, I can't wait any longer. You crushed talking about Jack Roslovic last week on
Oh
Columbus.
my
Like I was
gosh,
like. I
I
was like, which
know.
Columbus person should you add? Because they had such a great schedule this week. And I was like, should it be Voronkov, who's been great, by the way? Don't get me wrong. Marchenko, like they've all been good. Like Marchenko and Voronkov have been good. But you were like, you know what? I just want to throw out there like Jack Roslovic, who's playing on the top line with Jenner and Gaudreau. And I was very skeptical. I was like, come on, this guy again with Jack freaking Ross. But no, like he did really well. And Brian, I ended up adding him actually,
Hey,
and I've been
all right.
benefiting. So he's
Yeah.
been one of my great streams of the week. He and my other stream of the week, which I'm really stoked about, is Travis Sanheim has totally been awesome, and I'm glad I got him. But anyways, we could start with Columbus and Roslovic. How did you know? Or more, or like, do you think? I guess, or no. Probably the
Okay.
more useful question is actually that Columbus doesn't have the best schedule next week. They don't even play till Wednesday. I should mention that Roslovic again had a multi-point game today in Columbus's 4-2 win over the Rangers. But now we have to wait till Wednesday, and then Columbus plays Wednesday, and then Thursday, Saturday, which are both busy days. I was planning on dropping Roslovic, Brian, tomorrow to stream in someone who's going to give me more games. Do I need to hold now, or what do I do?
I don't know. I don't know, Elon. I mean, I'm scared. I've never been right about Roslovic before. And like I had my own hesitations on the show. I was like, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I have to say it. So I'm glad he's panned out. I don't think you need to hold for, potentially one game played next week. He's been doing great. You know who else has been doing great is the guy I traded away in Columbus, Boone Jenner. He had a 5-game point streak. He's taken that's been snapped for 2 games now. He's now pointless in 2 after doing nothing but taking 4 shots and 3 hits and 2 blocks and 14 faceoff wins, which is all very valuable stuff against the Rangers. Was it this afternoon or earlier this evening? So Boone Jenner's been doing great. Johnny Gaudreau, so Roslovic, I'm talking about Boone Jenner because they're on a line together, right? And Johnny Gaudreau has also been consistently productive too, and seems to be, isn't like really shooting, but it's still kind of shooting. So yeah, I like this. It's like Columbus has a top line for the first time this year, and Roslovic is on it. So maybe I'll drop him for this week, but I will be looking to pick him up again the next time that I have a need for a Columbus player.
Yeah, I might even. Well, of course, now I'm talking to my competitors, but I could see. This is the rules of keeping Karlsson. Even though one time someone, remember, like called us out and was like, or we had like we had a bad review on iTunes, being like, now that they're in a league, like they don't share all the information. We asked on the show, like, can someone please give us an example? But anyways, here's an example of me hurting myself. But I would think a good strategy would be to drop Roslovic and then like put a waiver claim on him to get him back. I'll drop him Monday for someone that plays Monday, Tuesday, and then put a waiver claim because we have like when you drop someone on Monday, they clear waivers on Wednesday in cupful. So then try to get him back. And then I don't lose anything except I gain 2 games. But I don't have any fab left, so anyone who wants could get him for $1 or higher. So, anyways, yeah, he's been great. And I should mention, since you were so right about Roslovic, Brian, you do remember, right? Last summer when I was talking about Dmitry Voronkov as like a good
How could
dynasty
I
ad.
forget?
Oh, what a call. And today, a goal and an assist, 7 shots for Voronkov. He also scored in his last game against Buffalo. There's a power play goal, by the way, today. He's not even on the top power play, but he's got power play goals in 2 straight games. This guy,
Which is
I,
like good and
I love
bad.
him.
right? Because like you're not going to keep scoring from the top power play. And I also just want to say, like, Elon, you love Voronkov. I get like, but I
Well, I
also
have him on both of my dynasty leagues.
yeah, okay.
I had
So
to argue
like
with
it
Victor. Like I told him because I joined his league. I had him in my league, and then with Maddie, and then I was like, Victor, we should add Voronkov. I think he's gonna be good. And he was like, I have like, I don't. Victor's probably listening to this and like, why are you assassinating my character? Victor like knows all about the prospects. He's told Victor was the one who was like telling us we should draft Callum Ritchie, and all of a sudden Callum Ritchie is getting ranked as like one of the top 5 prospects in the league right now in a recent article I read. So I have no shade on Victor, except I did have to argue, and he'll agree. I argued to get Voronkov on our team, and he's really paying off in our playoff matchup. But
yeah,
anyway, sorry, Brian, you were going to say about
I just want to
Voronkov.
contextualize like your excitement with Voronkov's value to most people in most leagues is still like stream him in
Sure.
when Columbus is playing. If you want to like take a try, like Voronkov has like he's all goals. He has 1 assist in his last 18 games, but he's scoring a lot of goals in a way that I'm not sure we'll be able to keep up. I'm just doing the quick math here. Let's see. In his last 13, Voronkov has 8 goals, no assists on 37 shots, so shooting 22%. 3 of those on the power play. And like this is not to take any wind out of your sails, Elon. Great call in deeper formats and dynasties, but in
Okay.
a like in a day-to-day redraft, whatever. I just want to. I'm not as excited about him as you are in those contexts.
That's fair. I will also just say that maybe next year, like, don't forget about him. Like, he's only 23 years old.
Yeah.
I saw if you saw that workout video last summer, this
The
guy,
workout video.
he's like, I think he's just gonna
Okay.
work out again like crazy next summer, and he's gonna be even better next year. So watch
I
out.
just of the guys we talk about, also his player picture is so good. Like he looks startled. I don't know if you've noticed. He looks ready for anything too. Like he looks like, oh, you startle him. Well, good. Okay. But his prospect upside, like on Dobber Hockey on
Yeah,
Frozen Tools,
it's terrible.
it's
Like
five
that's
and a
why
half
Victor
out of
did.
so I just no, I know, but I just wonder. I'm curious. What is the general performance of guys who are that low? Like usually, I don't think we see a whole lot of guys who have prospect upside like less than 7 ever like maintaining fantasy relevance. They're generally pretty accurate. So I'm curious to know if there's like a record of past 5.5ers who have managed to do anything.
We'll see. I think this summer he's gonna lift even more than he lifted last summer.
Yes,
He's gonna come back even more jacked, and like who knows what he can do.
Can't wait for the next off-season Voronkov workout vid to drop.
All right, so let's continue down this list here. Oh wait, we weren't even doing the list. Oh yeah, I was just couldn't wait to talk about Roslovic. The other guy, yeah, I'll just mention now. All of a sudden, Travis Sanheim is back. Are we pause the pod here? Like we said, pause the pod early in the season to go grab Sanheim because he was on the top power play in Philly and just like exploding, and then just out of nowhere, Tortorella was like, I don't like how many minutes he's playing. I'm taking him off the power play to give him a break. So and then all of a sudden, like his fantasy value like disappeared, and he got dropped in a lot of places. He wasn't dropped though in my couple division until just like a week ago, and I grabbed him mainly just for schedule. Like he was playing this week Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, so I grabbed him Wednesday morning, and I got a goal on Wednesday, and then I got an assist yesterday, and now 2 goals today for Sanheim versus Pittsburgh. Still not top power play, but he did get a decent chunk of power play time today. He also had 4 blocks in each of his last couple games, playing huge minutes. I think, obviously less exciting, not on PP1, but I think Sanheim, if you need D and he's out there, I think we might be too late, but this is a nice run. Like, probably won't keep up, like, whatever the streak is, like 4 points his last 3 games, but I like the peripherals, and I like the current stretch of points and shots.
Sorry, who was that?
Sanheim.
We're just jumping around here, huh?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, hang on. Okay. The blocks are amazing for Sanheim. The shots are like 2 or 3 a game, which is good. I would like to see him assist more than he's scoring. He's got 4 goals on his last 12 shots, so scoring on a third of the shots he takes. None of that coming on the power play. So I don't know. Like we're not remember Sanheim for the start of the season. We were like buying in. We're like, yeah, if he keeps getting the deployment and keeps doing what he's doing, and neither one of those things kept on. But we said if it did, you could start relying on him to be not as good as he looked, but still good. Here, I'm not there yet, right? Because he still doesn't really have the deployment, and I'm not. I'm not I'm not great if you have him and you've been enjoying him. Fantastic, I'm happy for you, but I'm not seeing this as a sign of things to come again yet.
Right. Okay. So I think this will be an interesting one to look back on. I feel like I agree that like what he's doing now is not necessarily sustainable. But I will say like a lot of these goals, theoretically, sometimes it happens. I know I say it sometimes on the show, like the goalie saves it and then someone else scores a goal off the rebound and it's an assist, right? So maybe if the goals, go down, maybe he adds assists just from that. But anyway, D is often hard to come by, and so definitely, especially if your league counts blocks, I would be taking a look at Sanheim right now. Maybe he's back a little bit. On Philly, since we're here, Trev wanted us to. He wanted to hear our interest level in Tyson Forster, who is someone who I guess is like one of Philly's top prospects. And with Tortorella, he's been like not getting good deployment and then like disappearing. But recently, Forrester has been playing on. Would you call this a top line? I guess if you're not with Konechny, you're not the top line. But like with Tippett and Morgan Frost in today's game versus Pittsburgh, and Forrester had himself a great game today. Crazy game, by the way, right, Brian? Pittsburgh won 7-6. I wonder if Philly would have won that game if they didn't have Cal Peterson in net. But alas, I guess you have to give Ersson a break sometimes. But yeah, 2 goals and 1 assist for Forrester. He also had a goal in his last game, and he had been out of the lineup the 4 games before that. So what's your interest? He's probably in free agency in a lot of leagues. And he's coming in strong, getting back in the lineup.
Yeah, and he's playing with Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett, which, I think I want whoever's playing with Couturier, and I want whoever's playing with Tippett. And so Forster's playing with Tippett, who we know we talked about, like he takes all the shots, which creates assist opportunities. Of course, Forster has been scoring three of these 4 points that he's picked up in his 2 games since returning from injury are goals. Those 3 goals have come on 7 shots. One of them on the power play, although not from the first unit. I'd take a chance on him. I'm not saying I'd prefer him to Sanheim. I'd prefer him to Voronkov. I think maybe we're talking like Forster versus Roslovic. And I think I would take. I think it's close. I think I might. Is it crazy? I just want to like ride this Roslovic wave.
I think I would. I don't know. Yeah, I think it could go either way. Forrester long term, I definitely like a lot better, but I guess you never know with Tortorella. Also, what the lines will be. Konechny is like hurt, by the way. We still don't have an update. He's missed the last couple of games, so that would obviously be a huge blow for Philly. He's on an incredible run, right? Like connecting 12 points in his last 7 games before getting hurt, so they'll need him back if they want to keep this playoff push alive. Also, Scott Lawton, I should mention, like Noah Hannafin. Lawton is definitely like I don't know what Philly's going to do though because they're still like in a decent spot in the standings, but also Lawton is a free agent, and people are gonna be interested in like one of these leaders, and he's got 10 points in his last 7 games. So Lawton definitely raising his trade stock, or just. But anyway, what do you think about Lawton in fantasy? Like, do you think this is something he like? Obviously, not keep up 10 points in 7 games, but would you be looking to add him if you could fit him in next week?
I don't think so. Like, I don't see any reason why Lawton is really going to keep this up. I mean, he's on an amazing run, and maybe this is just one of those moments where you pick the guy up and just see how long it goes for, and maybe it does turn into something, but his deployment is still pretty nothing. So that's why, like, I'm sorry, I hate to be a bummer. I want to be.
I think I'm with you.
I want to be into one of these Philly guys, but I just don't see a real reason to buy in on any of them yet.
I like Forrester more than Lawton. I'll just say that if you're deciding.
Okay, me too. I'll join you there.
Okay, let's go back to this list of leading scorers over the last week. I just wanted to talk about Sanheim and Roslovic, my 2 free agent ads from this week. Very exciting for me, Brian. But okay, let's go to the Sens. Your Ottawa Senators. Thomas Chabot is next on the list. Man, this is kind of funny to me because it's like I think for years we've been like into Chabot and like he should even be doing better. He was like the sure shot top power play D man on the team for so long and just wasn't kind of performing at the level that a lot of people hoped he would. And now this year, in a year where we had more competition than ever, like Chychrun and Sanderson, and now Chabot is like coming on and like having one of his better seasons, especially recently. 5 points in his last 3 games, now goals in 3 straight. He's been like getting a good amount of power play time recently. It's all over the place actually. If you look at his game log, I guess because Ottawa just has those 2 units. But Chabot, do you think this is like for real this recent run? Like, and now overall we're up to a 52-point pace for Thomas Chabot. Are you taking the over or under on a 52-point pace when it's all said and done?
I think I'll push. I'll just push. I think Shabbat is probably about where he belongs. Like the funny part is you're saying like all this vis-a-vis his Shabbat's power play output, and this has been like Shabbat's power play production has been, this is almost as bad as it's ever been, really. 6 power play points in 33 games, so pacing for like maybe 15 in 82 games, which yeah, is one of the worst outputs of his career. This latest run for Shabbat is like I hate like this has been a big shooting percentage show. I guess when we're talking about the best players in the last 7 days, that's going to happen. But 3 goals, like Shabbat's on a 3-game goal scoring streak, and those 3 goals have come on 5 shots. So I don't expect this exact run to last, but I do see overall that 53-point pace being something that I think we could just expect or hope to sustain, roughly. I guess if you push me, Elon, I'll take the under, but I don't think it's going to be by such a huge discrepancy that you're going to be like, oh, it's going to surprise you based on what he's done so far.
Okay, and then in net in Ottawa, we got to talk about it, right? Eunice Corpusalo has been the starter for a lot of the year. Hasn't been too great. Like he's had like he actually did have a couple good games recently, which was surprising, I guess. But he's letting 3, 3, and 5 goals in his last 3 games. And Anton Forsberg got a second start in a row yesterday versus Vegas. So Ottawa beat Dallas, and Forsberg only letting 1 goal, and so then he got the next game and another win for Anton Forsberg. Do you think we're at a point now where Anton Forsberg might be someone that Ottawa will lean on while he keeps on winning games, and so that makes him obviously more interesting in fantasy? And Corpusalo, who was like his one thing he kind of had going for him was that he played a lot, and now just makes him like pretty much completely droppable.
Well, the question, like you're saying, could Ottawa lean on him? And I don't think anyone can lean on Anton Forsberg. I think that's my answer here. As good as he might have looked lately, like against Vegas, he stopped 26 of 29, so that's a below 900 save percentage. And I don't know that Anton Forsberg can keep playing very well for any length of time. And Corpusalo, like you said, like the irony is, he's been good more often than not for the last month or so. Well, he has an 896 save percentage, so that's not great because he's blown up like 2 times and had 2 other bad starts in his last 11. But having 7 of 11 mostly good, actually quality starts, 7 of 11 for Corpusalo, that's huge and uncharacteristic of the year he's had so far. So I think maybe Corpusalo and Forsberg share time so long as this formula is working, but I don't see Forsberg shutting Corpusalo out of the crease.
Right. So, but still 50-50 probably means you're not that interested in either of them, especially since Ottawa's not like the most awesome defensive team.
Right. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
no longer depend or hope for volume from Corpusalo, at least in the short term.
Yeah, until Forsberg gets injured. Well, that's not nice to say, but hopefully Forsberg can stay healthy the rest of the year. When you were saying like I don't think anyone could lean on Forsberg, I thought you were going to say because like that'll hurt him.
That too.
Okay, so next up on the list here we have Gabe Vilardi, also 5 points, but only in the last 3 games. So we talked about how great he's been. Next up, 5 points in his last 4 games, Alec Martinez. That's not a name I would have expected to say on this show. Look at this guy, 36 years old, and he's even like pointless in his last couple games. But he started the week with a 3-assist game versus San Jose, then a 2-assist game versus Nashville. I think it's pretty obvious that Alec Martinez is not going to keep this up. One thing he is keeping up is his insane number of blocks. He had 5 blocks against Ottawa, up to 134 blocks on the season in 41 games. This is his bread and butter. So if your league counts blocks, obviously Alec Martinez is a cheat code for that category. Like Chris Tanev is pretty good, but he's no Alec Martinez.
Yeah, way to frame that. I mean, and I don't have much more to add. Like those 5 points for Martinez in 2 games were like really came on an island, and he's really like he's taking like a shot a game. So there's not much fantasy relevance here. Not that I expected. The guys in Vegas that we've been following though, Nicolas Roy, he's just got a point in his last 4. So is the slowdown starting? And I'll say the same for Barbashev, who has just a single point in the same game against Toronto in his last 4. And Barbashev has also now gone 4 consecutive games without taking a shot.
Yikes.
That's bad. Yeah, so it could be drop time for Barbashev and Roy.
Yeah, probably. And it's a tough time in Vegas. Of course, the news came out that Mark Stone is out long term. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. Like on the plus side, like Shea Theodore came back and he's been great. 5 assists in his 3 games, 2 of those on the power play. So Theodore's great, but sucks that Stone is out. I think you might be right about Barbashev and Roy. If we look at the lines recently, Marchessault keeps on cooking, and Marchessault, but now isn't playing with either of those guys. Like Barbashev was playing on a line with Stevenson and Amadio against the Sens, and then Roy was playing with Paul Cotter and Keegan Kolazar. So that answers that. Like obviously, it's not the deployment they were getting before. At this point, yeah, they're waiting for Jack Eichel to come back, and apparently he's skating with the team, so he'll be back soon, and they could use him for the depth. This does not look like the Stanley Cup defending team, and like they just need to squeeze into the playoffs, then hopefully get Stone and Eichel back, and then it'll be a completely different team than the team that lost to Ottawa, I think. And also same for like Aiden Hill. I should mention, like if you're worried about Aiden Hill being cold, like yeah, it's not surprising with the lineup in front of him right now.
Yeah,
But
it's crazy to think that like Vegas is still like night in, night out, one of the scarier teams to play against. And then you look at their depth chart. And if you didn't tell me their record, Elon, and I'm looking at who's playing for them right now, I think I would probably say they're a below 500 team. But that's just because this hasn't been the lineup all season.
it's like Vegas's first season, where everyone looked at the lineup and thought this is for sure a below 500 team, and then they made it to the Cup Finals. So they somehow know how to do it. Next up, Brian, I'm going down this list here. So after Alec Martinez, we get to Drew Doughty. I guess we already talked about LA when we talked about the hot streak of Kempe. But yeah, Doughty having himself a good run as well. 5 points in his last 4 games. Then there's Mason McTavish. We talked about the Ducks. Shea Theodore. Then, okay, here's a new team. Noah Dobson continues his amazing season. 5 assists in his last 4 games. And right after him is Brock Nelson. 5 points in his last 4 games. And the big news out of the Islanders is that they switched up their lines in the last game and had Nelson, Horvat, and Barzal all on a line together, which is, great. That was at the end of the game, by the way. And so we'll see if this holds. Because that would be, just like stacking the top line, kind of like Minnesota does, which kind of hurts your like Paul Marys, your Anders Lees, whatever. I think we're done with Anders Lee, but like Paul Mary is someone who was on such a good run when Patrick Waugh first came in. All of a sudden now he's gone ice cold, pointless in his last 4. Are you like, I don't know. I guess it's an easy answer. I assume like Paul Mary is a drop, like especially if Brock Nelson's not going to be a center for the next few games.
Yeah, Palmieri is definitely one of those guys where if he's not going, you don't need to hold on to him. And right now he's not going. So you don't need to hold on to him. And we'll see what like he's still on the top power play, and there's a chance that Palmieri can end up back with Besser like anytime. So I'd still keep Palmieri on my watch list and as somebody that I'd be interested in re-adding if like the schedule makes sense. Because like don't forget, he was just on a 6-game point streak, including 2 games in that streak where Palmieri had 11 and 8 shots. Remember on last week's show, we said we're looking for another big shot game to reinforce our hopes for Palmieri, and he did have 5 shots on what was it, Thursday against St. Louis. But otherwise, there's not a whole lot to write home about. So you can drop Palmieri, but keep him on hand in case he can add some extra GP for you.
Okay. Brian, let's take a break here. And when we come back, we'll continue our tour through the league, looking at the top scores of the past week. Okay. All right. No. Brian, we are back. We still have a few teams to go here as we get to now. We're still at a couple more players with 5 points in this last week. They are Alexis Lafreniere and William Karlsson, whose teams we've covered. So now we're getting into the people who had 4 points in either 4 or 3 games. Quinn Hughes is there. Not surprising. We talked already about the Canucks. Pius Suter. I mean, that's good. I don't even think we even mentioned him. But yeah, if he's going to be back on this line with Besser and Miller, then he becomes another like really interesting streamer when you can fit him in. Matthew Joseph had 4 points in his last 4 games. Ottawa is rolling a pretty evenly, I don't know how you'd say it, like evenly distributed top 9, which leaves Matthew Joseph playing with Tim Stützle and Claude Giroux. So it's a great spot to be in. And yeah, not surprising that he's doing well. And maybe that's something he can keep up. Josh Norris, 4 points in his last 4 games. And then we get to Pavel Buchnevich, 4 goals in his last 3 games. Though that doesn't tell the full story because like 3 of them came in one game. And he had a goal in another game. But aside from that, Buchnevich has actually been like not as consistently good as maybe you would have hoped for when you drafted him with a pretty high pick. Yesterday versus Detroit, Buchnevich, it was a 6-1 win for Detroit. So all of St. Louis was pretty bad. But yeah, nothing for Buchnevich and only 1 shot. So Yeah, I know that Shams in our group chat was deciding on a sit start decision and sat Buchnevich for that hat trick game, and then probably then he played him, for the Saturday game. So that's the frustrating thing about these like sit start decisions. Sometimes I just wish we could play best ball and just like just take your best players on a given day. Like I have them on my team. Why can't I just get credit for the ones who did well?
Yes. I mean, I've advocated for no benches in like a cupful, which would kind of get at that. So I remain in. I respect the reasons not to. I think with St. Louis, you're just looking at a team that's kind of uneven in scoring. So you mentioned Buchnevich hasn't been like consistently great, and that's true. And then I look at St. Louis as a team, and like this reflects on Buchnevich, right? Like he's got to be one of the drivers of offense on the team, and if he's not, then the Blues aren't going to score a lot of goals. But I'm going back roughly 10 games. I'm seeing zero. Like these are their goals: 0-3, 7-1, 6-2-2, 4-1. So it's is that someone's phone number? I feel like someone robocall. Yeah, that's all. I'm sorry, I don't have anything deeper to say aside from like I just don't know that St. Louis is good enough to be consistently productive. And I still like Buchnevich. I wouldn't bench him. Like, no offense to Shams.
Well, he had a lot of good players that he had to choose from for that day. Brandon Saad has 3 points in his last 3 games. It's like I remember we used
Don't
to
get
talk
me
about
started.
him. We used to talk about him so much on the podcast. He was like a guy that you thought, and a lot of people thought was like just needed more ice time, and he would be a star in the league. Like back when he was on Chicago. Go back to your 2015 episodes of Keeping Karlsson for those conversations, I guess. All right, let's keep going down the list here. Kucherov. Oh, we haven't talked about Tampa. Oh, so yeah, Kucherov had himself another good week. 4 points in 3 games. Nothing too surprising. It's the way it goes on Tampa, though. They've changed up the lines again. So they played today against New Jersey. They won 4-1. You just have to check every day recently. But yeah, they were rolling with Hagel with Point and Kucherov, leaving Stamkos to play with Connor Sherry and Nick Paul. And I guess that explains why Stamkos is now pointless in 5 games. That's the real news story out of Tampa. Well, okay, very quickly, I'll just say that Cirelli is someone that we were interested in for a little while because he was getting really good even strength and power play deployment. Cirelli was still on the top power play today, but now he's like 4 straight game without a point, barely shooting. So Cirelli's not someone I'm that interested in. But yeah, Stamkos, Brian, are we concerned, or is he another one of these people like we were talking about earlier in the show? Great time to buy him before the trade deadline while he's pointless in 5, or is this like maybe a sign of something to be concerned about?
I don't see why we would be concerned. Like, I don't know if you have a reason that I'm not seeing. But yeah, and I also don't know who would sell low on Stamkos. I guess it's been a while since he's taken more than 3 shots, but he does that pretty consistently. And it hasn't even been that long. Like 8 games ago, Stamkos had 6 shots. So I'd rather he have a better 5-on-5 line, but still top power play. Those lines can get shuffled any minute. Elon, maybe the only other thing I'll point out is that Stamkos has played just 15 and a half minutes in 2 straight games. And actually I'm looking back at his time on ice, and it's been low in 4 of his last 5. And so I just kind of, I wonder if he's nursing something, is all I will say. I don't know that to be true or have any indication other than seeing these lower ice times.
Yeah, I just know like if you look at the last game, Hagel played 23 minutes and 46 seconds, and Hagel doesn't even get top power play. I'd be so frustrated if I have Stamkos and I'm seeing that top line is getting in on all the fun, and my like superstar, the guy who only like probably Kucherov was drafted ahead of him, he's like not doing anything. He only had 1 shot today against New Jersey. So I think you probably could find a panicking Stamkos manager. I'm with you that probably it'll be fine, but my panic level of him would be higher than who was the guy I said I'm not concerned about at all? Maybe like Brock Besser or something. Like obviously they're in different leagues,
Yeah,
but
I think it
I'm
was
not.
Besser.
Yeah, I'm more confident that Besser will get back to doing similar to what he was doing than like maybe Stamkos just. Well, but again, Tampa always changes up those lines, but they did win today. So in the short term, anyways, it seems like if Hagel, Kucherov, and Point are playing all the minutes and like doing so well, that might not be great for Stamkos, but at the same time, he plays on the power play, and he could easily have a big game next game. I wouldn't be too surprised. It's tricky sometimes with players like
It
this,
is
especially when. Yeah.
It
and
is
you notice
tricky.
the ice time.
I'd watch that ice time, and I'm looking at like even more at Stamkos's ice time and the difference like in how it's been distributed. And he's playing low minutes, even with 4 or 5 minutes playing on the top power play. So that 5-on-5 time has really been cut. And so I wonder. I'll just wonder aloud if there is some kind of nagging thingy. At which like in which case I would hope Tampa sees fit to give him a rest and
Right.
get him ready. Where's Tampa
No,
at
but
these days in this stand? Like
I
they
think
need to
they're
win every
fighting.
game, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me bring up the wild card race right now. Tampa is on the last wild card spot with 69 points. The Devils are like, this was a big win. Tampa just beat New Jersey. If New Jersey would have won, they would have had 64 points and Tampa would have 67. It would be really close. Now it's 69 to 62. So Tampa has some breathing room, but you don't want to feel too
Wow.
confident when you're on the second wild card.
Looking at these the wild card standings is kind of wild. Like if Washington has 4 games in hand on Tampa, if they win them all, they're I mean
They're right
that's a big
there.
ask, but they're tied with Tampa.
Yeah, it's
Washington.
going to be an exciting end to the season. And meanwhile, Detroit is in a playoff spot right now. Philly is in a playoff spot right now. So we're going to see some new teams potentially in our Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, in the end, Toronto's still going to play Florida or Boston like usual. Like for Toronto, nothing changes. But in the Metropolitan Division, it's pretty interesting. But okay, Brian, let's continue down our list here. So we talked about Kucherov. Next up, Miro Heiskanen. Keeps rolling, 4 points in his last 3 games. His defenseman partner, Thomas Harley, is cold now. For a while, we were really I was really impressed with how he was continuing to produce even off the top power play, but now pointless in 3 for Thomas Harley. I guess, only 3 games, just one bad week, but when I look at like someone who doesn't shoot too much lately, isn't on the top power play, would it be crazy to drop this guy even though he was hot for so long? Thomas Harley?
Sorry. Yeah. I appreciate you repeating the name for me. There's a Hanley on the Dallas blue line too. That's confusing. Yeah, I think you could go ahead and drop Harley. I don't see much of it. Like we talked about how if he did fade, you don't need to hold and wait that it'll come back. Like the points will come back because Heiskanen's back. So I'm not sure exactly what Harley like has for sure to offer. Said like he's playing, big minutes like in the low 20s for a high octane team, but and actually also most of Harley's power points when Heiskanen was out weren't coming on the power play. They were coming from like a bit of a shooting bender he was on, but he was taking like 4 more shots several times, at least every other night. And now Harley has a combined 4 shots in his last 3 games. So now that the shots have faded away, I think Harley can also fade away from your roster.
And yeah, the guy now, the new young player on Dallas that I'm very interested in potentially is Logan Stankoven. Like, who knows how long he'll be there? But Sagan was out with a injury for the last game, and I don't think we've had an update yet if that's long or short term. But in the meantime, I think he's the AHL leading scorer right now. Stankoven, one of these prospects for Dallas that's really shot up the ranks, kind of like another Jason Robertson, drafted in the second round. But if it was a redraft, he'd be like top 5. I don't even know. But yeah, he played his first career game against the Carolina Hurricanes, and he didn't get a point, but he took 3 shots. He was +1, so he was on the ice for a goal. Maybe something bounces differently, and he gets an assist. I didn't see the highlight, but yeah, Stankoven is definitely someone that I would be interested in. Obviously, for a dynasty, he's like long gone. For a 1-year league, if it turns out he's going to stick in the lineup, he was playing with Wyatt Johnston, who's another like big young up and coming star for the Stars, and Ben. So an interesting line there. Obviously, like on Dallas, like you don't really want to lean on someone not on that top power play, but I think that Stankoven in a deep enough league would definitely pique my interest, and I guess at this point more than Harley.
Yeah, for sure. Stankoven, I wonder, like they called him up, right? And then he didn't actually end up getting to play. And so I wonder if Dallas was just like, well, we owe you a game. Like you thought you were going to get your
No.
first. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I
You
think
don't
it
think
happened
that's
because, well, what happened was that it was looking like maybe Duchesne would miss the game. And so then they called up
yeah.
Stankoven, but then Duchesne ended up playing. And then Sagan did get injured and missed a game. So he was next in line. Just they
Right.
needed someone to actually
Yeah.
be out of the lineup.
Yeah, so he got his game. I don't know if I'm sorry if you mentioned this already. If you did, it bears repeating. Stankoven is a rookie is like wrecking the NHL. 24 goals and
AHL, yeah.
AHL with Texas. 24 goals, 33 assists for 57 points in 47 games. Being over a point per game. He's 20 years old. He turns 21 tomorrow, actually, or Monday, depending on when you're listening to this. So happy birthday, Logan. That's incredible to be over a point per game in your first pro season. So way to go, Logan Stankoven. He actually leads the AHL in points right now, tied with. Do you want to guess?
Alex Steves.
No. Is
Okay, I don't
Alex
know.
Steves on your dynasty roster?
Yeah, I knew he was like having a decent season.
Is he related to Rick?
I don't know. Rick Steves, the tour guide.
Yeah. No, it's his Texas Stars counterpart. Maverick Bork.
Oh yeah,
Bork and
Dallas is gonna
Stankoven.
be.
Whew.
Dallas is so loaded. Like,
Making
they're so
beautiful
good.
music together. Like Pavelski is gonna retire and age out, and like guys are gonna leave, but guys are gonna come in Dallas. Like
Mhm.
they have a window, and with Ettinger, like it's gonna stay open for a little while. Bork with 57 points in 49 games, but it's also his second year in the HL. So I still give Stankoven a whole lot of credit. Steve's, by the way, 42 points in 43 games with the Marlies.
Yeah, he's having a good year. But the Leafs don't want him to ever play up, which makes sense. They have Bobby McMahon. But okay, let's keep on going down our list here, pal. So after Haskin and Tyler Toffoli, which I guess we haven't talked about New Jersey either. They lost this game today against Tampa. They've been switching around some lines. We'll see now if they switch it around again after a tough loss. They really needed this win to stay in their playoff race. They were rolling with Dawson Mercer back with Hughes and Toffoli. It didn't work out. Nico Hischier is kind of cold, like only 1 point in his last 4 games. That doesn't happen too often. Yeah, just things aren't going so well for the Devils. But nothing really to sink our teeth into, I don't think, because I think these lines are going to keep switching around. And you just got to kind of keep watching and seeing. Timo Meier had one good game recently. Yeah, he had a goal and assist versus Montreal. Aside from that, he continues to be quiet. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything actionable to throw out there about New Jersey, except for it's been a disappointing run for them.
I think that's basically been the line on New Jersey for a little while. Like to find them out of a playoff spot when they were coming into the season as Cup favorites is pretty wild. And so yeah, it is what you said. Just keep checking the lines in New Jersey, and then you can decide who to roll the dice on if and when you can stream someone in.
Okay, so after Tyler Toffoli, sorry, one sec. I accidentally went away from the page. Let me go click the link again. Do you want to go click the link again so we'll be synced up? Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I just went. You know what? At this point, actually, let's just take our last break and then we'll just go through the remaining teams. So we'll just forget about it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, Brian, so let's take our final break, and then we'll just kind of burn through the remaining teams here. It's been really fun looking at who were the good players over the last week. But now I just want to make sure we don't miss anybody. So anyone else we talk about are going to be people who didn't have like such an incredible week. Though there are still some players who had 4 points in the last week. So that's really good. But yeah, we'll be back in just a sec to finish off this mega episode of Keeping Karlsson. All right, Brian, we are back talking about the news and notes of the past week. I'm just going to go alphabetical here through the teams that we haven't talked about yet. Arizona, Clayton Keller injured today. That's the top headline. Probably should have started with that. I don't know if we have an update. Shams is here in the chat. I'll just check quickly what the latest retweet is. Yeah, so Arizona Coyotes PR. Coyotes forward Clayton Keller will not return to tonight's game. And then in brackets, upper body. So hopefully, I mean, that would be really bad for the Coyotes if they lose Keller. Not that they're like doing that well anyways. Maybe it's good for them to have a chance at the top overall pick. But yeah, this is again like a Troy Terry injury. I can't imagine this being good for anyone. Schmaltz ended up having himself a game today when he had been really cold. I wanted to come into the show today and, pull one of those. I know he's cold, but I'm still kind of into him. Now I guess I'd be less into him if Keller is injured. I don't know. How do you feel about Nick Schmaltz? Was I even like being dumb for thinking that he's fine? Like, I guess he's been cold for long enough that maybe he is someone I should be more concerned about.
Well, he was the centerpiece of the deal where I acquired, where I sent Boone Jenner away. It was for Schmaltz and Evander Kane. So now we've talked about everybody there. Schmaltz is so like there and not this season, which is kind of weird, and I don't think you were wrong to be high on Schmaltz. Like, he was a 75-point pace player for the last 2 seasons. He missed 20 games in each, but that's 125 games where he'd been a 75-point player, and it looked like sustainably so. And we figured Arizona was only getting better. But Schmaltz this year has had a really hard time being uh, consistently productive. And mostly, like, on the power play, he's fine. Everything there is going well. But at 5-on-5 is where Schmaltz has really lost his, you know, whatever, his groove. And I think variance is the reason. But at some point, it's like 55 games of bad variance. When do you cut bait on that? And then I look at the last couple seasons and I see, well, maybe those were good variance years. Like, he shot 17% for those 2 good years that I mentioned, and had an on ice shooting percentage of 12%. Both, like, those numbers are high, but if he did it 2 years in a row, it's like, oh, well, maybe that's the baseline. But then I look at the rest of his career, I'm like, I don't know that that's the baseline. Maybe he was just riding high variance for 2 consecutive years, and now he's riding low variance, but maybe he's closer to the low variance piece than the high variance. Like, it's hard to say with Nick Schmaltz, and it's kind of frustrating. Like you said, if Keller's out, then that's trouble for everyone. But Schmaltz had just a single shot over 4 games before scoring 2 goals on 5 shots today against Winnipeg. I have him in 2 leagues, and he's been really close to the chopping block for both those teams, including the one that I acquired him in. He's just what Elon. He's almost like Sam Bennett this season for me, where he just goes quiet for long enough for me to want to drop him, and then, like, he pops again, and then he goes quiet again. And so it's just sort of on this pendulum. By the way, Sam Bennett, after that big game he had, he's done like nearly nothing until, was it today or yesterday? He picked up a point. But Sam Bennett doing to us what he continues to do to us. And so I'll put Schmaltz in there with Bennett as one of these guys who's like not quite bad enough to drop, but also not quite good enough to hold on to.
Right. Yeah. Schmaltz is. You're starting to convince me that maybe I'm higher on him than I should be. So I am decreasing that now. We'll see. Like, great for him to come through and have a big game today after Keller got injured. Played a lot of minutes. We'll see if he, like, maybe with Keller out, Schmaltz will, like, step up because they need him to. So that would be interesting to see. Okay. Next up, let's go through just a few interesting notes here as I'm looking through my list here. So Buffalo, Owen Power came back. He had missed a few games and he did score a goal, which is good today in the win over Carolina, but didn't get any power play time. And also Owen Power is like, he's going to need to do a lot to become interesting in fantasy, right? I think this goal, he'll need to do that like a bunch more times before he's someone we'd consider recommending to stream in, right?
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. You know who's someone that still isn't on the top line in Buffalo, though, who's on the top power play now, though, and producing, is Dylan Cousins.
Oh, yeah.
He's having a bit of a good stretch since
Yeah.
January 20th. Do you know that he has 13 points in 13 games? He's not shooting a whole lot lately, Dylan Cousins, but
I like Dylan Cousins. Yeah.
yeah, but he's been, and guess what? Since January 20th, he's been back on the top power play, essentially. So since getting back there, he has, of those 13 points I mentioned, 5 of them have come on the power play for Cousins. So that is a big reason. And we said, like, you can sort of let go of Cousins until he lands back on the top unit. And he's there right now. So if he happens to be available in your league for as long as he holds on to this spot, you might want to consider grabbing him. And meanwhile, the other guys who have held it, we'll just quickly mention Paterka and Middlestat. Pretty cold lately. Middlestat with just 2 points in his last 9 games. Same for Paterka. Paterka at least is shooting more than Middlestat, but neither one looking like a surefire hold.
Okay, so let's continue here. I'll say yeah, definitely. I like Cousins over those guys. Definitely agree. Over in Chicago, another goal today for Nick Foligno in the loss to Detroit. Power play goal. That brings Nick Foligno up to 9 points in his last 9 games. Chicago has a bad schedule next week, only Thursday, Saturday. But I don't know. I think I might want to hold him. Like, he's really doing well with Bedard. And he also gets you a ton of hits. So he would be a really tough drop for me. I don't know if I'd have.
You're gonna hold Foligno for 0 games.
I think I'd put him in my lineup for those 2 games.
Who's
a
at
point
the bottom?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have him in my couple division, But
Oh,
he's
okay. You said if you had him.
but look, like 9 points in his last 9 games. This deployment is whole. He's top power play. He's top line with Bedard. He's get like most of the points Bedard gets, Foligno gets. So if you're interested in Bedard, like Foligno's doing really well. So, anyways,
Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm very impressed, and also I think he can keep this up to some extent.
6 goals on 23 shots is a big reason why Foligno's collected these points. I
Yeah,
get
so
what
he'll
you're
pass to
saying.
Bedard.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Or like maybe Bedard is creating for Foligno. I don't think you need to hold him for a 0 game week, though. I think you say thanks for the memories, move on, and then see if you can re-add him for Chicago's
Maybe.
next.
It's tricky. I think someone else will add him. Hey, if he's dropped a Mike a couple division, I'll add him, and then I think I'm gonna, then I'll get him Wednesday. All of a sudden, now it's not even like, I had too many games without a game, and then like a lot of teams, by the way, next week only play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so it's not as if like he has the worst
Right.
schedule of the week.
So Shams wants to know: would you play Foligno over Buchnevich?
No, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
And also, yeah, Norm is pointing out Foligno was playing with Radish and Johnson tonight, which is crazy. I guess so. Who was on the top line? Was
Got to spread out the
Beauvillier?
offense.
Beauvillier was back on the top line, I guess, with Kurashev and Bedard. Okay, well, that would be a reason to be less interested in Foligno if he's not playing on the top line. Still on the top power play, though, and I guess he got that as a power play goal. Maybe if he didn't have this power play goal today, I'd be less interested. So, fine. Now that I see that he's not on the top line, a little less interested, but maybe that changes again by the next game. Okay, Detroit. I just wanted to mention that Patrick Kane is now on a line with DeBrincat and Larkin, so they're stacking up. I guess a lot of teams are just finally deciding to just stack up their 3 best players, which leaves Lucas Raymond out in the dark, but he's still like doing really well lately. But I'm definitely less interested if they're gonna stick like in Raymond, I should say, if they're gonna put Larkin, DeBrincat, and Patrick Kane all together. So that'll be something interesting to watch. Any comments on the wings?
Well, I guess the last time we talked about DeBrincat, we were like, shoot. And he's not quite back up to his big shooting, but he did have 4 shots in a row, 4 shots in consecutive, like back-to-back games. So that's good. And then he had 3 points in the second part. Like DeBrincat at least is producing again. He's got 8 points in his last 7 games and seems to be at least taking a couple shots a game, which he wasn't doing for a week or two just before and just after the All-Star break. So let's hope that we are seeing a return to form from DeBrincat, even though like production's been a little uneven between him and Larkin. Oh, I think we could also mention, Elon, that the Detroit power play, I'm just looking at the way they've been splitting it lately. It seems like the 50-50 experiment, is it over? I'm not sure if I'm parsing this right. Remember they were like doing, yeah. It seems to me like it might be.
Why don't you just tell me if it's over?
Well, because I can't see the last game. I can't see the last game lines because they're playing like today. They didn't have a power play opportunity. It doesn't look like it's over. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just cut. I'll just cut that part
you
out.
could cut that part. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go. I'm gonna just do one more, just Slavkovsky, and then we'll go.
Okay.
All right. And Brian, let's end over in Montreal. I need to talk about this cold streak because just recently we were talking about Juraj Slavkovsky and how he's like coming on so strong. And he's like a must-add all over the place. And since we said that, pointless in his last 3 games, only 1 shot in each of those last 3 games. Are we doing a full 180? Time to drop Slavkovsky, or is this just like, get ready to feast on a really good player when someone else drops him?
We needed the shots and we needed the minutes. And the shots, like you mentioned, have disappeared completely. The minutes have stayed, though. So I'm not going to do a full 180. Maybe I'll do like a 70 or 80 degree turn, like starting to turn away from Slavkovsky. And maybe this is all he's got to offer. But I'm going to still hold him for another few games and see if he can get back on the score sheet. I know we're impatient and the leash feels short with him because, well, it wasn't that long ago that he was a nobody that we would never actually really want on our roster. But I'm willing to wait this one out a little bit more because the deployment has held and the minutes have held.
Yeah, it's not a great schedule next week, so I could understand dropping him, but I agree. Like, I think there's still good times. I don't see why like anything's really changed, right? Like, why is he worse now? Maybe it was just a bad week. I think that he, if he's playing with Suzuki and Caulfield, he should still be good. Brian, this has been a blast going through most of the teams in the league, but alas, our time has come to an end. Hope you have enjoyed this, listeners. We really appreciate anyone checking out our shows, especially late in the season. If you enjoyed what you heard, we wouldn't mind a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts, if that's a feature on your podcast player. If you want to help support the show, you can look into our Patreon, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. We give you all the perks we could think of for $5 a month. And we have a really fun community over on Discord that you can join, and you can obviously cancel at any time. So that's at keepingkarlsson.com/Discord for more information. So that's at keepingkarlsson.com/patron for more information if you're interested. But with that, Brian, let's cue the outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits and take us out of here?
All right, but first I'm just gonna tell you that I would have won my matchup this week had I maxed out my games. So
sorry,
got to go back
to
to
it.
Yeah. Also had the Wings not dropped 2 late goals on Petr Mrazek, I would have, or like had they dropped 1, maybe I could have absorbed that. So close.
Sorry, pal.
It's my own fault. Okay.
Let's start the music now. I didn't start the music back then. Let's cue the music. Go ahead.
That's right.
Bing!
I never heard it. That's so weird. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our Superist supporters, Patty, Ricard, Dusty, David, Ryan, Tom, Zachary, Andrea, Sammy, Ivan, Philip, Aaron, Patrick, Jordan, Michael, Don, Roman, Top Cheese, and Lucas. Thank you all for your super support. Thank you to Kevin A. Bear, Lord of the Bots, for keeping the cupful running smoothly. Thank you, Shams and Elon, for all the work you're doing keeping the stream of fantasy news rolling at GameDayTweets.com. Shout out to the Short Shifts crew, Lewis, Shams, Jeremy, and Derek, for keeping the content fresh through the week. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoldies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Yahoo, and King Hippo.
Okay, thanks, Brian. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. We're going to have a lot of shows coming at you as usual. Check out the Matchup Maximizer I dropped just earlier today, and then we'll have a couple short shifts next week. Make sure you're subscribed to get everything. And then, Brian, in a week, we'll be back here doing what we always do, going through the teams, talking about what happened, and I'm sure what's going to be another exciting week. What should we all do while we're watching and seeing how our fantasy leagues play out, waiting for that next mega episode?
Yeah, well, stay on top of your fantasy teams, keep maximizing your games played, never give up. And while you're doing that, make sure that you're doing anything you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Awesome. Sorry about the loss, pal.
I'm so dumb.
Well, I guess, what are you going to do? You were probably just busy. It's not dumb. You were just had plans.
I mean, that was, it wasn't plans. I was just checked, yeah. But all I need to do, I was so close to adding a goalie start 3 times. No, I'll wait till Saturday. I'll wait till Sunday. Then I looked too late in the day on Sunday.
I guess you should have set an alarm. Maybe next time, just when you have this exact same plan, do everything the same, but make sure to set an alarm on your phone for before the game start on Sunday.
Ugh.
What are you going to do?
Ugh. Usually there's a 10 o'clock game on Sunday. Usually, why is Anaheim playing early tonight? Come on.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. I hope you liked it. Send Brian your commiserations. But yeah, I'm going to head out here. Bye, pal. See ya.
Okay. Bye. Good job. Thanks, everybody.